A night in with Mauler and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen dictors. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop off the cork, have a glass of wine, plus they'll say I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, Mauler and the critical drinker.
I need to like just do the same thing as my avatar there. Slowly go backwards and forwards. Yay!
The best intro.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to Open Bar number 70. We're into our 70s now, Mauler. We're getting quite old now. I know. It's nice to see this in virtual terms, like an age that I'll never actually reach because of liver cirrhosis. But yeah, virtually we can live there, so that's all right. But yeah, welcome everyone to Open Bar number 70. We've got a nice open bar lineup tonight, and yeah, some cool little things to be talking about. It feels like it's crunch time for the strikes. The Marvels is panicking and putting a review embargo and everything, and some crazy guy called Nelson Peltz is trying to buy himself a seat at the board at Disney so he can oust Bob Iger. So I think there's some interesting stuff to talk about. So why don't we bring in our guests so we can have a little chat about that?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, you know him. You know his beard. He is the one and only Nerdrotic. Welcome back onto the bar, sir.
As somebody in their 70s, it's it's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible.
The bones just ain't what they used to be.
They're not what they used to be. Life isn't what they used to be, including longer. It's much shorter. So thanks for having me here with what time I have left.
Well, you can.
It's yeah. How does it feel to be playing the back nine, as it were?
Awful. It's awful.
It's all right. We'll all be there soon enough anyway, so don't worry.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to be back.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to have you on as always. Next up, we have got if his internet is going to hold it together, we have got Echo Chamberlain. Welcome back, man.
Yeah, I made it. Thanks for having me back on. Psychologically and emotionally, I feel like I'm in my 70s. And with the state of my back, I feel like I'm in my 80s.
That's fair play, yeah.
If you pivot your back, it shouldn't make the sound of like rolling a thumb over the edge of a deck of cards with all your vertebrae snapping. So that's where I'm at.
It's always kind of satisfying when you do that. You know, you stretch a little bit and you just hear like crunch, 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 crunch as all the vertebrae just snap into place.
You know, can't stand up anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, your legs just like jellify. Like, oh, damn. Stretched a little bit too hard this time.
The spinal cord again.
It's only one time that's ever happened to me. Not snap my own spinal cord because that would be horrific. But
yeah.
I remember one time, like I got out of my car and like, you know how you twist to the side, obviously, to get out. I don't know. I must have twisted at the wrong angle or something. And I got this shooting pain that went right down my back. And then my legs, both of my legs went like really numb and tingly for like the next 15, 20 minutes.
And then you pissed yourself.
Well, that happens. That happens most days.
That doesn't happen to everybody? Sorry.
Yeah. I thought, well, you're over 50. You tell us, Gary.
Yeah, all the time. Just get used to it. Is my microphone better? I heard the chat that my microphone was low.
Yeah, you sound good to us.
Sound right to me, yeah.
Yeah. It feels like there's always a bit of a mismatch on Open Bar, but you know, that's why we're so horrendous with technology here.
Yay.
I just blame it on the drink. It's fine. Anyway, welcome back, Echo, and welcome back, Nerdrotic. And we've got one more guest to join us this evening. He has been on the Open Bar many times, and it's always awesome to have him on for his dry, analytical wit and his superb voice. So welcome back, Little Platoon.
Oh, thank you very much. And I have to completely change my accent just to make sure that you've landed yourself into there. But,
yeah, you could have been like a coarse Welshman or something, you know.
All right, guys.
Cat standing.
How you all doing?
That was your awful voice.
That was, yeah.
Even that was refined.
But no, it's good to have you back. And, well, the bar is assembled, gentlemen. And I think we should probably tackle our first subject. What do you think?
Let's do it.
I mean, if you have to.
Well, I mean, we could just sit here, like, shooting the breeze for, like, the next 2 hours.
Yeah,
Let's talk about whatever. Who cares?
Someone think about the rain. You got
Oh,
rain.
It's
What do you think about
raining
rain?
like hell here.
We get a lot of it here in Scotland, so yeah,
There you
not
go.
keen on it.
Talk about that.
Yeah, it's fun for a while, like diarrhea, but then eventually it becomes inconvenient and then kind of terrifying. So yeah, just depends how long it lasts, really. But yeah, I was going to say the Marvels is coming out in a couple of weeks, and we found out that as with most things, they allow people, select people, the special people, the trustworthy people, to view it in advance so that they can review it. Normally, they allow them to give their views well in advance of the movie coming out, so people can judge if they want to see this film or not. But they've taken a different approach with this film, and they've got a review embargo in place until 2 days before the film comes out. So it releases in the US on November 10th, and actually in select markets on November 9th. The review embargo does not lift until November the 8th. That is pretty close. Some people have suggested it's because there's a little cameo that they've worked in a post-credits scene, which I'll talk about in a minute because there's a few rumors and a few ideas doing the rounds. Other people have suggested it's because the movie's just terrible and they know it's going to get slated in the reviews and they're trying to protect it for as long as possible.
That would be my pick.
Yeah, I think so.
Bold strategy. Bold strategy. Usually works out for all the movies that flop. Remember when they added Superman to the end of Black Adam? That really helped.
Oh, yeah. I was thrilled by that. How's that Superman career working out for Henry Cavill?
Yeah, they fired him afterwards. So, yeah, it didn't work out very well. Although Black Adam probably is going to make the most money out of all the DC movies.
I think we can guarantee that at this point. Or this latest crop, anyway, for sure.
Yeah, I saw I mean, we'll get into it. I saw the rumor of like who's going to be at the end of the Marvels. You could bring back Robert Downey Jr. It's not going to help this movie at all. It's been reshot 3 times that we know of, and then cut down from a 2-hour, 20-minute movie to, without credits, 88 minutes. 88 minutes, which is probably still too long, but I am grateful that I won't have to sit through an entire film for that. But I remain excited. I am probably the most excited person for this film on the planet. And I am counting down. I've got like, it was like, just like when I was getting out of prison, I was like crossing the calendar out. It's the same thing for the Marvels. I get up in the morning. First thing I do is one more day, baby. One more day. I can't wait.
It's going to be the best representation of the current state of Marvel.
It really is.
I think so, yeah. I'm less excited for the initial release of the film than I am for a couple of weeks down the line when we get a solid idea of the box office numbers.
Well,
I'm excited for all of it.
I think we'll get a solid idea the first weekend. I think we'll get a pretty solid idea.
I half expect this one to be ravaged by like everyone. I don't expect anyone's going to have any patience or sort of rose-tinted glasses for this. Like, nobody cares about these characters. The story isn't going to make any sense. They never do. Nobody's even going to see it. So it's like, it's just got everything is working against this film. This is a comedy of errors all mixed into one.
I think that's the story.
My splendid isolation, but I'm not even seeing a huge amount of preemptive defense for it either. Like, which is always the interesting thing. But when like a film is coming out and the predictable kind of people start to say, you're only going to hate it because you're all a bunch of ists and phobics. It's going to be great. It's just that you hate women, so you're not going to like it. I'm not even seeing much of that. And if they can't come out and see it, then I don't think anyone's going to go and see it.
There's there's one that came out and it was to the effect of like, well, there's been a review embargo in place and it's going to spark the usual round of conspiracy theories from the usual suspects. That was the only article that I could find that tries to run some sort of defense for this film. I would have assumed that the old dependables like the Mary Sue and stuff will just give this 10 out of 10 regardless of how good or bad it is.
Maybe.
Like, they will run defense for it no matter what.
Maybe they'll have their own issues with it. Maybe they'll say like this was a bad spotlight for these women and they deserve better or something.
There's one issue they're going to have is Carol Danvers is in a very heteronormative relationship. And they've already written articles about that. Because they had coded her differently. I don't really care how they code Carol Danvers in the MCU, but that was brought up. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. To Little Platoon's point, I think the biggest story here is like just the pure apathy for this thing. I mean, other than abject mockery, there's no anger behind it. I mean, the damage has so been done to the MCU that we are entering the apathy phase, or we're well beyond it at this point. And it's just like the long, slow dwindling of a franchise that we used to love a half a decade ago. Because we're going on about a half a decade without a really good Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Maybe one, Guardians, but does it really count because that's such a holdover?
I don't think it can.
And as well, like this whole thing kicked off in 2008. That's 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good run.
You said 50 then. I was like, geez.
Well, up until
How old am I?
19.
Give it some time more.
I mean, that's it. I was a Debbie Downer for the way that I said it was going to happen. I feel like more like a Rachel realist. Okay, this is the reality of the MCU right now, and I think it's going to get a whole lot worse.
I think you were right in the sense that this is pretty emblematic of where Marvel is right now. A movie about a bunch of characters that no one cares about, doing a thing that no one's interested in, on a plot device that no one understands, fighting an enemy that no one's ever heard of. Yeah, and yet it costs almost $300 million to make.
Sounds like a recipe for success.
Yeah.
With the embargo, it's not as if there can be really any spoilers because no one really knows who two of the main characters are and what their background and history is, and so no one really cares. I see this as in the broad contours of this year as the last kind of effort of a year of grandiose projects, of total disconnect from the audience, of people in the writer's room with their own self-indulgent agendas. And to me, it's like Gary in the back alley in Team America World Police, where he vomits one time and then vomits again and vomits a third. And this, for me, is that third spew in the back, where it's just the end of this horrible year we've had of total grandiosity in Hollywood. And now it's been shrunk down to the size where you could probably watch it 3 times within the space of Killers of the Flower Moon, whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's. I think this is going to go down as the year 2023 is going to go down as the year that the superhero movie died, effectively as a really powerful box office force. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's never going to be other superhero movies after this. Clearly there is. I just think that the genre is very much in decline, and it's no longer the thing that people flock to the movies to see. I've said it before. We've had a grand total of 8 different superhero projects released this year, 8 different superhero movies between DC and Marvel. 6 of them are going to flop. The Marvels is going to flop, and I think we can guarantee that Aquaman 2 is going to flop. So a failure rate of 6 out of 8 is horrendous. That is not a sustainable box office metric.
No, and they're going to have a lot of time to reflect on this now that they put themselves out of business for 6 months, and we're looking at losing a fall TV schedule, most things getting pushed out to, they say next summer, but in reality 2025. So yeah, whether they learn any lessons from it, I doubt it, but as far as the box office driver, the superhero movie is kind of done, which should scare the hell out of Hollywood, because without that, for the most part, besides some obvious exceptions like Avatar 2 we just talked about, which we had completely forgot about for months, and like Barbenheimer, which will never happen again. That was the box office driver. And what are you going to do now? Especially when you have no content, as opposed to, well, here comes some alternative content. You know, I'm sure they'll start making more action movies because they're fun and they're cheap, and they do relatively well, but they're not going to be box office drivers just yet. So we will see. We will see like what repercussions this has. But it's going to be like a desert in all. If the theaters even survive, you're going to see probably one chain go back into Chapter 11 again very soon. By the way, a couple just got out.
Taylor Swift will save everyone.
She will.
We'll just do more Taylor Swift concerts, and the theaters will be saved.
Thank God.
I mean, I love,
because I looked at the statistics ages ago, and I can't remember the exact figures. But if you do get rid of Avatar 2 and Marvel films, and you look at the box office in general over the last 10 years, the decline is steep and marked. And like, obviously, that's an easy counterfactual. Well, if you get rid of the biggest performers, then obviously it's going to look worse. But the point of that illustration is they have put all of their eggs in basically 2 baskets. And both of those, well, one of those baskets is now completely full of smashed eggs, and the other one releases once every, decade. So what are you going to do in the interim when you don't have these great, numbers driving things coming in anymore? And it's sort of indicative of the lack of planning. That's the studio problem. That's the writing problem. You would think, or you'd hope maybe someone somewhere would take the strike as an opportunity to stand back and say, right, let's reevaluate and get some clearer sense of direction, even if it's just in our head canon, so we can structure ourselves going forward and maybe have a coherent universe. There was a Marvel official timeline book, I think, released last week or the week before, and Kevin Feige did an interview around that and said, yeah, the timeline's a mess, but eventually it's all going to coalesce and all these timelines will smash together and it'll have something to do with the TVA. I'm sitting there thinking, you don't have a clue what's going on, do you? That's why your next big release has 3 protagonists and 2 of them no one's heard of. It's all good planning.
This is why people are already talking reboot.
Which in this book, Kevin Feige said 10 years ago would be, I'm paraphrasing, considered a failure, and something he would never do.
Oh yeah, how the worm has turned. I mean, you can see how they get to this point because comic books do it. Like DC have done it when they had Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's just like when things get so convoluted and it's like, right, okay, we've overwritten our own lore so many times. We've messed around with the timeline so many times. It's so convoluted. Let's just wipe the slate clean and start again. I can see them doing that, but I can't see the enthusiasm being there again. If they were to say like right now, like the Marvels is going to be the last in the current timeline, the current iteration of the MCU, we're starting over. We're going to start over with another Iron Man or another Fantastic Four or something like that. I just don't think the interest would be there because people are just burned out with it. We've had this for 20 years now. It's enough.
Yeah, trying to establish continuity or saying that you're going back to continuity seems so kind of redundant now, because to the average punter going to see these films, they've long since lost any track of cohesion of what goes where and how everything slots into what else. So there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah. So, well, in terms of, because I know we talked briefly earlier about maybe part of the reason they've got a review embargo is because they're trying to keep spoilers from us. For example, a post-credit scene that introduces, and this is one of the weird rumors doing the rounds. Apparently, they've changed the post-credit scene at the last minute to include Monica ending up in the X2 universe and meeting up with Kelsey Grammer's Beast and a new Maria Rambeau variant.
So they're not setting up the Young Avengers anymore. They abandoned that. That was supposedly the last post-credit scene.
There could be anything at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't rule it out. Maybe they'll meet George Clooney Batman as well.
God, I hope so.
Kelsey Grammer. Is she going to end up on Money Plane? I don't even know how he fits into anything.
I mean, like, who knows?
Well, he was Beast, right? But like,
yeah,
a long time ago. Back
a
when
long
he
time
was
ago,
not incredibly old.
I mean, you're under so much prosthetics with a character like that.
It would be
CG
you could
have
well,
anyone.
It's probably just his face, just on another body at this point.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But at this point, like, you could essentially have the movie be 10% actual movie and 90% post-credit scenes with like a bunch of cameos from people from previous
that might actually make money from the Marvel stands, because that seems to be what they like, is the next thing, the next Marvel product. Yeah. So
I mean, yeah.
Oh my God, he Vadered. That's the kind of people they're appealing to now.
Well, that feels like it's far out, but like could happen. The crossover thing, Iron Man and Vader have to fight each other, that sort of thing.
I say go with it. Why not? At this point, you've trashed Star Wars, you've trashed Marvel. Just smash them together like a child playing with different toys, and just see what happens.
Ready Player One it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, who cares at this point? Like, if you're gonna probably reboot it anyway, if there's very little value left in these franchises, go for it.
What they don't understand, what they've never understood, and this is the thing the fans have actually been trying to save, is the legacy of this thing that the fans have been a part of, some of us comic readers, for over 4 decades beyond. And even the early MCU, we're trying to preserve these characters that we liked and this story, and they just don't care. They wanted to wring as much out of it as they could. And, like, I don't know. I must be a sweet summer child. When a company spends billions of dollars on an IP, you'd think, well, you want that IP forever to last forever, and you want to cultivate it and treat it, with respect and care and watch it grow like a garden. It's like, no, shit.
Nah.
No. They just grew their pot plants and then burned down the field and moved on. That's all they care. That's all they care about. They've never cared about legacy, which I learned early on, but it's kind of astonishing that the failure has gone on this long. In the book that Mahler actually talked me into reading, the reign of the Marvel Studios, one of the problems, aside from just this slavish adherence to the message, has been Kevin Feige wasn't always fully in control. As a matter of fact, when the Marvel Studios was created, I think there's a lot of people out there who think he was part of it, and he wasn't. He was there, but it was handed off to him by somebody else. He had full control of all of Marvel, all parts of Marvel, marketing, publishing, as of 2019. But he took over Marvel Studios back around Civil War, which a lot of people know already, and got rid of Ike Perlmutter. But when he was in charge of 1 or 2 or 3 movies a year, it was manageable. It was fine. He is now in charge of 10 projects, possibly 8 to 10 projects a year, and it's just completely, he can't do it. And everything relies on him. Like, the buck stops with him. And that's the only time the book gets kind of critical of him, when they say he's taken on too much.
I mean, Gary, you and I probably know about this because we know 1 or 2 people who've worked on Marvel projects who've spoken to us. And I asked them about this, like, what's it like dealing with Kevin Feige? And the explanation I got was pretty much, if you raise an issue and go to him, like, the response you get from him is trust the process. Trust the process of producing Marvel content, and don't bother me with this stuff because I've got like 500 different things that I need to try and deal with. I've got so many fires I need to put out. I can't deal with you right now. That's all you get out of him. And he's stretched too thin, I suppose.
Stretched too thin. Didn't make doesn't make a show a normal way. Doesn't use showrunners. Brings in a head writer, expects them to come back from another project to rewrite a project after one writer abandons it. You know about that, Drinker, and that, like, it's a nightmare. So that's how they approach their later films, right? And they've had a bunch of fall guys and gals like Victoria Alonso. Then they got rid of Perlmutter. But yeah, Kevin Feige just seems to keep escaping the criticism of taking on. Now he's blaming Chapek for putting both Lucasfilm and both Kathleen Kennedy and Feige have insinuated that they were forced to do all those projects during COVID and stuff, which is BS. It's like utter BS.
That's in the book, isn't it? Where it's like they suggest, like, yeah, they were pressured into it to meet earnings expectations, or like to make it seem like there was just more going on than there really was. And it's like they didn't have stuff planned. They were just told to do it. I think in Kennedy's case, it's just like, I'm going to try and force through as many films as I can by announcing them publicly before I'm shown the door.
Well, back in the day, rewind maybe 8+ years or so, I think a lot of people would have said around Civil War through to past Endgame a little bit that the MCU is too big to fail, as in it can float almost any project. It doesn't matter. We've seen loads of bad ones come out and they still make loads of money, blah, blah, blah. But it feels like it's actually flipped around to they're too big to succeed now.
Too big to succeed.
It's impossible to succeed because of the fact they're stretched so thin across everything. There's no quality control whatsoever. The wheels have to keep spinning. Everything has to keep going. All these people have to be paid. And it feels like a giant bubble has just popped and it's just bleeding money everywhere. And there's nothing they can do to stop it.
It's not just the producers and from a production side of things that are stretched thin. The audience is stretched thin. Because I can only liken it to the comic book industry. Like, if you're a fan of Marvel Comics, that's lovely. You might pick up like every new issue of Spider-Man or every new issue of Iron Man or whatever, but you're not necessarily going to read all of them because you don't have the time, you don't have the money to pick up all of them. But that's what they're kind of relying on. They're expecting that you're going to have that rising tide that lifts all ships kind of effect where, I don't know, you need to just stay up to date. You need to know what's happening in the MCU so that when you go to watch the latest movie, you'll be across everything that's going on. So you're going to watch all the TV shows and you're going to watch every obscure movie. But it's not happening anymore. It's become so fragmented and so convoluted that people are just checking out. Because most people...
There's multiple sources as well, because it's not as though anymore you can say, well, I've seen all of the MCU films up to date, so I am completely on track and I understand absolutely everything that's going on. You've got multiple sources with varying different qualities, introducing so many new facets of the universe, each with potentially infinite connotations. So if we assume that they go with that rumored end credit scene for Marvels, to understand all of the references in the Marvels, you will have to have seen Captain Marvel, every MCU film pretty much going up until now. We'll have had to see WandaVision, Secret Invasion, Loki, and the X-Men films from the 90s, and Ms. Marvel. And there's probably one or two that I've forgotten. And I haven't seen half of those because I started watching Loki and I thought I just can't be bothered. There's no point. It doesn't make any sense. Why should I invest in this? And then, yeah, now we have to go and make sense of. And Secret Invasion, the most boring thing since... it might actually just be the most boring thing.
Yeah,
and like, what is the point?
Yeah,
since Loki, maybe.
I mean, have you seen Ahsoka?
No,
it's just true. I have actually seen Ahsoka.
Just about to say, you've got a show with 3 strong female characters and a massive backstory of context and source material that the vast majority of people don't know. And then the Marvels, 3 strong female characters and then a vast backstory of source material that people don't know. So there's a huge hubris there and doubling up.
Well, I think it's this paradox that they have of the only people that are going to put in that amount of time and that amount of effort to keep up with all of this stuff so that you're fully across everything that leads up to the Marvels are hardcore fans of Marvel. They're like probably going to come from a comic background and they are super enthused to see all of this stuff translated to the big screen. That's great, but that kind of person is a bit of a rarity. And the strength of the MCU, especially when it was just movies before they launched all this crap on Disney Plus, was that it appealed to general audiences. Normies could pick this stuff up and start watching it. You could start watching Iron Man. You could start watching Captain America, and you could get it. It wasn't that complicated. There wasn't loads of like lore in the background that you didn't know about that you had to have in order to understand the film. It was just good to go. That's why they were so massively successful. Now it's getting to the point where you need to have all of that background knowledge to even understand what's going on. And you need to have stayed super invested in this universe for the past 15 years to get what's going on.
Even then, I think they've gone out of their way to try and alienate and piss off a lot of the old hardcore comics fans because, yeah, they are increasingly using references to comics, which has never really been a good idea because the MCU is already a different universe. But whenever they do them, they do seem to balk them beyond all recognition. I mean, I don't know of many original fans of She-Hulk, for example, who would watch the She-Hulk show and say, that was a faithful adaptation of Source. I'm really glad I've seen that on the screen. And if the comics are your thing and you really want to see the comic storylines on screen, then if anything, you're going to be more pissed off than the general audience because they have all of these decades worth of material to use and they're not using any of it. They're creating random crap that just, it doesn't even compare.
Yeah, I think Gary's mentioned this before, but like they had decades of great storylines within the comics that they skipped over in order to get to the present day stuff because it's more in keeping with the message. And look at what happened. This is where you start to get the fall off in audience interest, combined with all these other problems of oversaturation and like gradually decreasing story quality.
Right. Well, even with the modern like Winter Soldier stuff, you know, Bucky was supposed to get the shield. Bucky was supposed to be Cap, and they skipped right past that. Yeah. Even though they were completely setting it up narratively in 2 movies that now he doesn't get the shield. It goes to Sam. And
so they stretched the extremes. So you dumb down your characters, dumb down your dialogue, dumb down your set pieces, dumb down everything. And then at the other extreme, you make things densely complicated and intricate with backstory stuff you've got to know in other characters. And so you lose a big audience through that huge gulf in the middle.
Yeah, I saw the chat mentioning they even made Scar lame. You know, Scar's Hulk's son is better in the comic books, much better. And they, you know, even in Ragnarok, they ruined Planet Hulk. They just made it a like a little sliver of an Easter egg, basically.
I feel like, Hulk's son should be this terrifying force that, you know.
Dude, that was random as fuck, where they just introduced him at the end of She-Hulk, like, hey, by the way, this is happening. It's like, what?
He's the most bland, rubbery, like,
son?
non-entity. Like, he doesn't even say a word. It's such a shit way to introduce a character.
I know. Let's skip one of the best Hulk recent ones. Like there aren't many seminal stories left, and this one's, I think, going on 20 years old, 15 years old, and it's one of the best ones they've ever done. And let's just skip it. We don't need it.
I mean, I feel like they've never quite handled Hulk right. Even when the MCU was at its peak, they never quite knew what to do with him. That's why they never really pursued like a series of movies with him in it. He was always just an appearance in the Avengers. And
they can't. It's a rights issue.
Is that the reason?
They can't do a solo Hulk movie without Universal.
Isn't it only recently that they were able to do it now?
Something changed in the deal, but I haven't heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. But Universal still owns the distribution rights. So if they did, but they're allowed to use Hulk in team movies, whatever they want. They just can't title it the Hulk.
So how did they do it with Ed Norton then?
They had the Universal distributed that one, even though it was a Paramount deal in those first few movies. Universal distributed the
the
Hulk one. Yeah,
I still think he was at his peak in Avengers 2012.
I mean, they've gradually pussified him over the years to the point where it's now just Professor Hulk, and it's just like essentially it's just Mark Ruffalo, but like bigger and green,
like soy too, just soy Mark Ruffalo,
like Mark Ruffalo.
Well,
yeah.
That man does not eat enough red meat.
No, he needs more.
But yeah, I mean, like, what a way to take this terrifying character and turn him just into an absolute pussy.
That was one of the biggest bummers of Endgame, dude. Was like just Hulk just kind of fighting along with everybody else. It's like, you got to be kidding me. This is such a joke.
Weird thing is the payoff was right there in Infinity War to have loads for him. Same with Thor. We skipped everything with both those characters, and then we got lame shit in return.
Well, we know that the whole like destruction of Thanos' ship was supposed to be Hulk. That was 100% meant to be his vengeance against Thanos, and instead it was just this weird.
Dude, everything was so rushed. Why couldn't you have had Hulk and Drax working together to take on Thanos? Big brute brawn just going at it, especially because they both have very personal reasons to hate him.
I think it was Dave Cullen who said that they really should have just, because that whole scene was like then Captain Marvel, which nobody needed in Endgame because she was in for like 5 minutes and then gone. And it's like, she really should have just been introduced in Phase 4. They shouldn't have bothered trying to work her in at the 11th hour, right at the end of the Infinity Saga, where it didn't make any sense to try and bring in this massively powerful character and then have to think up increasingly convoluted reasons why she can't get involved and save the day. And so they should have just waited until all this was resolved and then bring her in. But they were in such a rush to introduce her.
It's that insane, stupid logic of like, yeah, but if we bring her in now, we can propel her forward with all of the, ones you guys like. It's like, that's just not how it works. It's never how it works.
Well, it shouldn't be your logic with any character. It's like, if I've got a character and it's like, well, the only way they're going to work is if I have a bunch of other more popular characters there to support them. I would think to myself, that's not a fucking good character then.
With such dumb logic anyway. How do you think we get situations where there are characters we don't like among characters we do like, if characters you like always push up characters you don't like? It's like, that's not a thing. And then it sounds like, from that logic, that they already think that she's going to need a leg up. It's like, so your character can't hold it on her own, huh? Is that the case? It's like
that was the case.
What turns out to be true as well.
Well, obviously everyone saw it.
That was the one argument that they could always fight. They sandwiched it between two of the most anticipated sequels of all time. Everybody knows this, and they gave it the best chance to win. They gave it the best chance to win. They had Infinity War lead into the movie, making it seem like you had to watch this movie to watch Endgame. And yeah, it made $1 billion, and it allowed everyone to run with this narrative that Captain Marvel's a popular character. She just had $1 billion movie, even though that movie was, and the reason it was rushed, Drinker, direct reaction to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman embarrassed Marvel. And Kevin Feige got tired of being asked there's lack of female representation in Marvel. Well, okay. Most of their good female characters are X-Men, but not all. And I'm not sure what the She-Hulk rights were at the time. They might have worked out later. That was one of your best female characters. Ended up ruining that. Couldn't get the Invisible Girl, Invisible Woman. So
they had Black Widow ready to go.
Black Widow was right there.
Black Widow was there. Gamora. These are
the irony on Black Widow was that Joss Whedon was the one that wanted to make her an actual character, because obviously in Iron Man 2 she didn't have much going on. She was just sort of there. But I think even Scarlett Johansson cited that he was the whole reason Black Widow actually got like backstory and detail and stuff. And it's like, yeah, go nuts. Because when did Wonder Woman come out again? What year?
2018.
17 or 18.
That's so funny because Black Widow obviously.
God, is it that old?
Maybe 16.
Jesus.
Well, I was about to say 2012 is where you got all the foundation you need for Black Widow in an ensemble film. We talked about it before, but Phase 2 is the perfect time to give Black Widow her movie, but they were too scared. And then to say they overcompensated for the fact that they didn't have any female-led superhero movies is an understatement. They had a shotgun blast attached to a minigun, and they were like, hopefully this will make up for it.
Yep.
Hence the MCU.
And Black Widow could have easily been a successful movie. You get a Joss Whedon at the time, or somebody who's done a femme fatale movie. You make it rated R, you make it violent, you make it a spy movie. Like you make it just like you made Daredevil. That's how you make it, and it would have been a successful rated R movie. Yeah, well, I would have watched the hell out of it. It'd been fun, but no.
And instead you got this weird scenario where Captain Marvel, who should have probably been introduced in Phase 4 after all this other shit had been resolved, was awkwardly sandwiched in right at the end of Phase 3. And Black Widow, who should have got her own solo movie in like Phase 2, didn't get a solo movie until Phase 4 when she was already fucking dead.
Well, and the movie itself was kind of a dick move to her as a character. It was mostly about how she abandoned her family and she needed to not do that. Which is like, what the fuck? Why would she ever have done that?
And the sole reason we got it, as you just stated, Mahler, was reactionary. Like, Marvel wasn't reactionary up until Captain Marvel. DC has been very reactionary. They listen to all the criticism. They pull the plug on stuff, and it's been a disaster. So since then, Marvel's been very reactionary to their internal activists, access media critics, and it really stuck in Kevin Feige's craw that there weren't getting enough female representation. That's why he came out and said, we're going to make half the characters women. Okay. Does it work story-wise? Doesn't matter. Making them all women. We're going to take some male characters and make them women, including Marvel, and turn him into Annette Bening. That was a great move.
Yeah, it's not really any much different to the character, though.
No. Well, in that movie?
It's a reference, Gary, to your own fucking meme.
Oh, sorry. I'm a little slow.
We did start the podcast with establishing he's old. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little
Once you get past 50, then all these things just go over your head.
It's just a little different, you know.
A little bit different.
A little bit different. That's all. That's a big change.
No, you're right about DC as well. Like that is a fascinating case study in like mismanagement of an incredible brand and how to just fuck up every possible advantage. Like DC are basically the Thrawn of the comic book universe. Like they have every advantage you could possibly ask for. The best characters, the most iconic people that even normie people know who Batman is and Superman is and stuff. And yet somehow every time they manage to fuck up and like waste every opportunity.
If Ant-Man 2 does actually bomb, you'll have James Gunn just saying it was all part of the plan. Don't worry.
Yes.
Yeah. These are acceptable losses.
Yes.
Well, they've had a lot of acceptable losses this year, and they're going to have one more with Aquaman too.
I'm not even kidding. That's the one thing I will be excited to see more of if Thrawn comes back in whatever form. Just more of this coping. It's just funny. More failures, and then him just being like, no.
It's almost like a parody at this point, right?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it's going to take us years. Take us years to actually get our heads around what happened with The Flash. I mean, it's going to take a long time to actually deconstruct the silliness, the layers of bizarre plot contrivance of shoving in weird IPs where they don't belong in a strange-looking, weird amalgam of a film with a lead actor who was cuckoo bananas. It's going to take a long time.
I think it's the definitive proof. Like the DCEU is proof that you can't be reactive when you are a franchise of movies. It doesn't work because there's such a long lead time on these films. Whatever reaction you have isn't going to filter through to the end product until like 2 or 3 years down the line, and it just doesn't work that way. because you learn all the wrong lessons, and if you draw all the wrong conclusions from what fan feedback you're getting, you're just going to make another mistake. You're going to lurch from disaster to disaster, and that's all they've done all the way. And it's such a shame because they had, like I say, they had all these great characters. They had Superman, they had Batman, they had The Flash, they had Aquaman, they had some good actors playing them. You know, Henry Cavill, one of the most popular Supermen ever, but like just saddled with horrendous films that they're stuck inside. And all of this stuff just gets trodden and crushed under the endless conveyor belt of just producing more content. And now, you know, you've got Aquaman 2 coming out. That's going to bomb, just like everything else has from DC this year. And they've tarnished the brand to such an extent that it almost doesn't matter what James Gunn does now.
No.
Moving forward, because people are just so disinterested in DC. It's just a joke now.
But it's the problem if you're obsessed with being current in everything you do and responding to elements of criticism from the media as an attempt to be current. If you inject memes into your artwork, as I think the first Black Panther did, that's an attempt to be current. You're out of date by the time your film comes out. And in the future, if anybody does ever go back to rewatch any of these things, I think you could pretty much say with maybe a year or two's margin of error, you'll be able to look in 50 years, look back and say, oh yeah, that film definitely came out in 2019 or 2022, just because of the amount of crap they throw in, the amount of attempt to be relevant, and the amount of reactionary bullshit that they chuck in. You'll be able to say, yeah, no, I remember that time. They were trying to respond to the criticism that people were obsessed at in that particular year. And it will be gone by the next year. The next film comes out, something else will be the issue. But if you're going to keep trying to respond to all of these things, there is no way you will ever be able to tell a continuous story over time. That was the great triumph of the MCU through phases 1 through 3. And it used to be the case you were sitting there looking at DC failing and thinking, how can DC maybe emulate what Marvel is doing? And the thing we got was Marvel emulating what DC did. And lo and behold, they both failed. People are paid to come up with these grand plans and ideas, and they're paid way too much.
I think the fundamental difference is that Marvel had confidence, particularly after the first couple of movies. They knew that they were onto a winner. And after the Avengers especially, like they had unbridled confidence in what they were doing. And once you're confident in your product and your strategy, everything comes together, because it's just you make solid decisions, not based on what you think people want, but what you know is working well. But with DC, they never had confidence. They were constantly reacting.
There's a socio-cultural lag, isn't there? So if your film is responding to something that's current in the culture, then by the time it comes out a year or two later, there will have already been a counter-narrative or a backlash. So your product will be released during the time of the countercultural backlash to whatever it was that you were initially reacting to.
Remember when She-Hulk made the fans the enemy at the end of She-Hulk?
Yeah.
That was really smart.
They really owned
Savvy
us.
stuff.
We preemptively knew that our product was going to be shit, and we made it that way so that you guys would get mad so that we could troll you.
Joke's on you.
4D chess right there. Fucking well done, Jessica Gao.
I'm still sitting by my emails every day waiting for their casting director to get in touch for season 2, and I still haven't heard anything, but it's really disappointing. But if they need a villain, I'll happily take that role.
Absolutely.
So with the actors' strike, they're pushing back all these projects because they want to get their head stars in front of the cameras to promote the stuff. But you kind of get the feeling that with the Marvels, they don't really care either way. Like it's not going to be a net positive if you have Brie Larson promoting your film.
I think, I don't think we need any of those three bagging on about diversity and representation to try and sell this movie. I think, if anything, it's going to be better if they just shut up.
Yeah. That interview where Brie Larson, she's asked if she wants to be, if she might be any future project with the Marvel character, and she said, "I don't know, maybe someone if they want me to, maybe I will." Like,
it's become infamous now, but we've commented on it in the past as like that's a person realizing that I don't want to play this character anymore. Like it's not popular.
Gary, ask me the same question, and I'll just give you the most pat, easy layup PR response. So ask me if I want to be in the character in the future.
Do you want to be Captain Marvel in the future?
Listen, the Captain Marvel experience has been so rewarding for me, and it's been so enriching to be able to have the opportunity to bring such a beloved character to the screen. So obviously that would be a conversation if that were to occur. But right now I'm just enjoying the fruits of our labors, and I'm looking forward to getting this thing out on the screen so you can all enjoy it. See how easy that is?
Seamless.
It
I'm
is.
sorry, I got a follow-up question. I didn't hear your pronouns, your preferred pronouns. What do you think of the Israel-Palestine conflict? And what about the Florida rights bill? I need to hear these things in a press junket for a superhero movie.
I don't care what a 40-year-old white dude thinks about Israel and Palestine. Okay.
I mean, she was smart enough to avoid some of the controversy about when they were asking about Johnny Depp being at the Cannes Film Festival. She was just like, "Yeah, why are you asking me that? Are you trying to get soundbite out of me?" Like, so I think she's learned from some of her mistakes. And that interview when she was on the red carpet and she was like, I don't know if I'm going to play it again. Does anybody even want me to do it? I think that was just a moment of like really frank honesty from an actor who realizes this role's not working for me. You know, it's not popular. The character's not popular. People are pissed off at me. This has done nothing good for my career. Why would I ever want to do this again? It's just frustration. I think that it just boiled up in that moment. So it was a weird moment of like self-reflection almost. I think it's fair enough.
Yeah, and she's been staying out of trouble. I mean, she for the longest time she was the face of like bad Marvel on everybody's thumbs, and she still that's been usurped, I think, by Simu Liu for Marvel and Rachel Zegler for Hollywood. But yeah, the reason people didn't like the movie is because the movie, like a Captain Marvel movie, could have absolutely worked. No one's saying it couldn't have. If you didn't make it completely about the message of like nothing but it was just it was oozing out of his pores with hating the patriarchy. Like from the very beginning to the very end, it really cemented and made me recognize what the hero's journey is, which is you were great all along. You were just being kept down by the men or by the system in that movie. And it was ridiculous. It was utterly ridiculous. Plus, you took one of the greatest Marvel villains. Not everybody's going to know this, but you took the Skrulls and you made them an immigration allegory in that movie when what? I mean, no, they're supposed to be at war with the Kree and neither of them are very good, right? And it's supposed to be a war that threatens, you know, the surrounding galaxy that you can really play with later. But no, that's like, we really need a current year immigration allegory because Trump doesn't like immigrants or whatever was in their head at the time. And again, it dates it. And it also makes it crap. You know,
I would say that conflict of intention with this adapting the Skrulls and the Kree like fucked up Secret Invasion alongside having a shit writer anyway. They were like, oh, wait, the Skrulls are bad guys, but the good guys in Captain Marvel was like, yeah, no, different ones. They're bad guys, and they were wiped out. You got to help them out. It's so, oh, look at them go. And it's like, how do we make them bad guys? It's like, make it so that they're mad because they didn't get a house or whatever from Fury, and they want to kill everyone. That works.
Yeah, because you don't want to use the Skrulls, this shape-shifting villain that goes all the way back to the second issue of Fantastic Four, who would be a formidable villain that could like shape-shift into other superheroes. You know what? Let's do Secret Invasion without superheroes. That's a really good idea. You know, hey, let's do Secret War without superheroes. We'll just have Nick Fury arm wrestling somebody. You know, it's dumb.
Yeah, they've eviscerated his character.
He's a Skrull. He ain't Nick Fury anymore.
Oh, everyone's a Skrull. I'm a Skrull. You're a Skrull, Muller.
No.
I always knew that about you. Yeah. No.
I don't want to be.
No, interesting point as well you touched upon there about like how Brie and the others, they can't promote this movie, obviously because of the actor strike that's ongoing at the moment. And well, interestingly, it seems to be getting to do or die time. There's actually an interesting article that just came out from the Wrap talking about this, saying the negotiations are still ongoing right now. They fell apart like a week or two ago, and they've resumed. Whether or not they're going to succeed, we don't know. But it says here that it's the witching hour. The studios are going to devote another week to try and resolve the SAG strike, or they're going to give up until January. So basically, if they don't get this hammered out, if they don't get a deal hammered out within the next week or so, the entire remainder of 2023 is just basically done in terms of film and TV production, because there's just not going to be enough time to get anything off the ground, and they're probably going to withdraw from the negotiating table as well until January. Pretty brutal stuff. And that seems to be what we've come down to, because we're now well over 100 days that the actors have been on strike, and there seems to be no end in sight with it at the moment.
I think it's like the writers got theirs. Where's ours? Come on.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
But the problem
anyway.
is what they want is what they want is quite a bit more than what the writers got.
Oh yes,
yeah,
and that's the sticking point.
That levy that they put on at the end is stupid. It was just a dumb move. It was overreach.
It was right at the end as well. It's like they pretty much got a handshake deal. It's like, okay, we've agreed on everything. We're all good. Yep. Okay, let's get this to the lawyers. And it's like, just one more thing. We're gonna need a 57. We're gonna need a 57-cent levy on every subscriber that watches our content.
Every streaming service. And let's, other people have pointed this out. I'm not the only one. So you're talking every streaming service. Not everything on every streaming service has anything to do with this union. So you're asking for a levy on the reality TV made over in the UK, which is a completely different deal. You're asking for a levy on South Korean entertainment, animation, everything. That's stupid, And it was the nanny is a horrible leader. She is terrible. Like the WGA they were responsible for some of the worst crap we have seen in the last decade, but they were better negotiators. Obviously, much sharper negotiators. The nanny's an idiot for doing that at the because the Film Actors Guild had momentum up until then. Like now they're breaking within their own ranks. George Clooney tried to pay off his own union to go back to work. Aren't unions great?
I think because the writers' strike was much more of a traditional old-fashioned labor dispute, because the majority of the people in the writers' union work pretty normal jobs. There are some very highly paid members of that union, but a lot of them are not very highly paid. It was really just a labor union dispute. We want more money and we want better rewards for the work that we're doing. Fairly simple. There were some silly demands made. They compromised on some of them. It was a relatively easy job. Actors are not normal people. Actors are almost invariably mad and divorced from reality. And so they can just say random things, and they don't really have the countervailing incentive to actually get around the table and compromise on a demand, because they can actually afford to spend 6, 12 months not doing anything, because they'll then earn a lot more money further down the line. So their demands are more ridiculous. Some of them overlap. Like, I do think the AI stuff is interesting and does need resolution, but if you're tying that to demands like we want a share of revenue, we want a share of profit, we want a levy on everything on your streaming service, and you're not going to compromise on that because, hey, we don't really need to, then this is just a recipe for something which just goes on and on and on with no end in sight until it just falls apart from its own contradictions. Because like you say, various individual actors will get around and say, we're kind of bored, or we need work now, and we can probably pay off to get an exemption. So we'll go back to work, and the rest of you can just, do your own thing.
And 14% of SAG, they're the only ones who are going to benefit from this deal. Talked about it in my last video. 14%. The rest don't. They don't make enough money. The minimum year, Disbrew talked about the minimum for the WGA. The minimum for the Film Actors Guild is $26,000 a year for where you're eligible for benefits, to where this deal affects you in any way, shape, or form. Everybody else, it was, I think a lot of the background actors were striking for like AI, but that didn't seem to be the stumbling block with either union. That got worked out pretty much. And now they're, of course, arguing about residuals, which was, I think it's always been about forcing transparency, which I'm absolutely for. I can't wait to get some. Ted Sarandos came out during his earnings call, and again, he's just words are wind, but he said there will be some kind of system where we'll be able to decipher the ratings on all streaming services that will be uniform. They just need to invent it, basically, and it'll be BS when it comes out. But I guess we're going to get something. Whether we believe it or not is another case. But yeah, they're screwed. They're screwed now. If this thing ends tomorrow, they're screwed, and the theaters are screwed. Restaurants are closing down. Costume companies are closing down. Prop companies are closing down. There's articles written. That's already happening. It's decimating the local economy in LA. It's down 41%. And
I was just reading that here actually.
Down. This whole thing's cost $3 billion, I think, so far.
Yeah.
For the LA economy.
Yeah, the 3-month period from July until September saw 5,311 shoot days in the Los Angeles area, which represents a roughly 41% decline from the previous quarter, or sorry, the same quarter previous year. That is huge.
So June 2 pushed back to March. Deadpool 3 pushed to May 24. Quiet Place Day 1 pushed to June 24.
Mission
Avatar
Impossible
3. Yeah, exactly. And here's an interesting one. I didn't even know this was a thing, but there's going to be a Dirty Dancing remake. And most of the delay there is caused by their decision over whether the lead actress should be reimagined as half Puerto Rican and half South Korean, or as a disabled black lesbian, and whether or not the director should be Southeast Asian or Director X from Robin Hood.
I want Director X to make everything.
For you, Director X. Rooting for you, buddy.
He's probably watching right now, actually.
Probably, yes.
Deadpool 3 coming out in May is an impossibility. It's an absolute impossibility.
Yeah.
They are going to delay that. I think they talked about moving it back to later. They can't even move it back to later in the year. They're going to have to push that to 2025. They got post. They haven't, unless they've been doing post while not finishing principal photography, which they haven't done, which I wouldn't put it past Marvel to do that, but that'd be terrible. That'd be a terrible plan. So, yeah, it's going to be a desert of film. Yeah, Mission Impossible 2 renamed and pushed back a year. Ironheart pushed back to 2025.
Oh, no.
And it's finished. It's finished. It's been finished.
Haven't they pushed Echo back as well?
To January. Not far enough.
Oh, okay.
Well, as had talked to somebody, and he said the description of the Marvels is, and I would say this is probably the same description for Echo, is like Marvel knows it's a total piece of trash, and they just need to drop it, and it's like we need to skate as fast as we can over thin ice. And that's probably Echo's. We'll drop Echo at 3:00 in the morning all at once, and hope you don't see it.
I think honestly it's going to be irrelevant whether Echo is great or absolutely terrible, because no one's going to watch it anyway.
No.
It's an obscure character, like who are really going to know her from Hawkeye, and not that many people watched Hawkeye even, so
I was really hoping someone would subtly drop in which show she was in, because I was trying for the life of me to remember who the hell she was, and I couldn't, and I didn't want to have to ask, but okay, she's from Hawkeye. I think I know which one she is now.
I've definitely heard things from behind the scenes of Echo as well. Like I've spoken to a couple of people that have worked on it. The actress was not enjoying herself at all, or like during making it. The production people were pissed off because they knew it wasn't working. There was multiple reshoots. I think the actress had gained a lot of weight between Hawkeye and Echo, so like her costume looked like shit, and she was very aware of that. And it all just combined together into a very unhappy production. And I don't expect that that's going to result in good end product.
Well, as was mentioned there as well, even if this was the greatest show on earth, I don't think it could succeed even with that.
Probably not, no.
Because there's so much working against it at this point. So,
but it checks all those boxes, guys.
I can't wait to see what they do with Ironheart, though. Does like Riri Williams, like this character who's just like, it's like snap the fingers and it's like a boil in the bag Iron Man. It's like, yeah, she's just as smart as he is, and she invents all this crazy technology, but she didn't go through any of the character development to get there. It's just,
I think
amazing.
Describing her as a character at all is a bit much. I mean, she's more of a prop, I think. Character's too strong.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, she's smarter than Tony Stark. Okay,
of course she is.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, it's like when Shuri is like lecturing Bruce Banner about like nanotechnology and going, "I'm sure you tried your best." Okay, sure, yeah.
He's got to do some laundry during the stream, so it's just...
No, there's just some twat doing some power sawing next door, so I just have to recurrently mute myself. Yeah, but
just throw a shoe at him or something. Be all right.
Yeah, who would have thought we'd see 3 technology genius teenage girls in the space of 1 year in 3 different...
We need women in STEM,
amazing.
Echo. We need women in STEM.
That's why I laugh so much as well. The first episode of Robin Hood, where they've got like again another teenage technology genius who designs like rocket powered jetpacks just in her spare time. Like, how'd you learn how to do that? Did you go to college? Nah, I just thought it up. All right, cool. Yeah, I do that sort of thing regularly.
All the time.
Yeah, it's easy, you know. Oh, it's great. You gotta love it. But yeah, man, I don't know. What's your opinion on the chances of actually resolving this in the next week or so?
I would guess minimal, but I'd also say it's probably the easiest time for the studio to act like it's taking a tough line. Because if everyone's going to scale down production anyway over the next couple of months over Christmas, you're basically coming out and saying, we're not going to negotiate with you until January. And actually, how much work would you really have done until that point anyway? Would be
yeah, I mean, based on the article that I read there from the Wrap, the take seems to be like if they haven't got any kind of deal arranged by Thanksgiving, then there's literally no incentive for them to do anything more because nothing will get done between Thanksgiving and Christmas anyway. There's no point in like starting a new project because it's just going to have to shut down anyway.
And that means writing off the fall TV schedule, which is huge. And they said pushing movies to summer of next year, which will get pushed further back. Yeah, Fran Drescher gifted them a hard line with that demand towards the end.
How could they even think about salvaging the fall TV schedule at this point anyway? Because like it is fall now. I mean, we're almost into November.
Well, that was the question I had. Does that mean next fall or is it this fall? And is it just shows that are waiting for some voiceover work or just last minute pickup stuff? That's a good question. Like writing out the fall schedule is I kind of thought like those things were already kind of locked and loaded and ready to go.
Yeah, like that is the only thing that you could possibly get off the ground at this point, where it's like literally last minute stuff that just needs to be touched up by a little bit of input from the actors.
Yeah, unless they're talking about broadcast, which does have a quicker turnaround, but which they might be talking about, but that's less prevalent now. So
yeah,
not sure.
I think it's funny as well because I saw this this article saying that a lot of these actors have had to go back to working in restaurants, like the classic cliche of like the struggling actor working like service jobs. And I just thought most of them probably were doing that anyway because like there's only a tiny percentage of actors who do this as a full-time gig. The rest of them are just day players or they are extras. Like the vast majority are working regular jobs in between acting gigs. So like it's not like that's a huge turnaround for them. They were already in that position anyway.
Yeah, the only bad thing is the restaurants they work at might go out of business if they're working in Burbank, True. So there's that. And then there's living in California and New York.
I mean, isn't it getting so expensive to shoot in California anyway that most productions just go other places that are cheaper? Like they'll go and shoot in Canada or somewhere like that because it's far cheaper and easier.
Yeah, Atlanta's becoming a place where in America where they do most of the shooting. And they usually jump around from state to state, whatever state wants to give a tax incentive. California goes through like their phases of it, but it's not a good phase right now because California's going broke. Look for a lot of stuff to come your guys' way to the UK. Totally different union, totally different agreement. Just make it over there.
I think there was some conversation about some people going out on strike in solidarity, but I don't think they've got the contractual right to do that in this country, or at least the main unions don't. So that we can still, if you had lots of dodgy American accents coming in shows in the next few months, it's probably an underpaid British person attempting to be an American. But hey, it's more work for us, so I can't complain about that. I think for the strikes, that you'll know when things are coming to an end because the actors will hold out as long as they possibly can. But when they're near breaking point, they will all start singing Imagine, which is the universal sign of an actor in trouble. And then once they start doing that, you know that the studios have basically won. It's just a couple more weeks and the actors will crack or cave and then you'll be fine. But it might be another couple of months before we get to that point.
I did like the solution put forward by George Clooney and the others where it's like, we'll literally just pay you guys off. We'll pay off our own union just to make them fuck off and let us get back to work.
Because that is the case, right? That they've got things they want to do and they can't because of their obligations to the union.
Essentially,
so sitting there like, well, what can I do? I have millions and millions of dollars. Can I use that? Can that sort it out?
Well, it's already like shows are getting canceled. 2 shows got canceled today on Paramount Plus, and they're looking at losing multiple movies now instead of a show or a movie. They're looking at some serious losses now.
And isn't this the fallout from all of this? Like, for the writers and the actors, we're going to go from like, what is it, 500 new shows per year, or 500 shows per year, down to like 200, because like there's not enough demand now to support it. There's not enough like money to support it, and it's going to be, you know, fewer writers, fewer jobs available for them, and the same for the actors. They've essentially created like a shrinking economy brought about because of their own strikes.
Because they were adherent to a union that was attached like a parasite on a corporation, which is a parasite in itself. Double parasites here, and that's why that's why going independent might be the way, and that's what this will probably inspire. Is like, well, if you're a writer worth your salt, go write a novel, go write a web series, go do other things. Same with actors. There's other places you can go to work. Might not be Hollywood, but since they're shrinking in relevance, and we're seeing better work come from other countries now. Something good could come out of this, but not for American entertainment. It's definitely going to shrink. You're going to see a lot of corporations buying each other out. Studios, those traditional studios, there'll be fewer of those. And who will be running the town? Apple and Amazon, two companies whose entertainment isn't a priority. It's just a side gig. That's kind of a vanity
they're also
project.
much more internationally based and spread out. I think that's one of the reasons that has motivated some of the union demands to really go after streaming services generally, as opposed to shows they're specifically attached to, is that they do recognize streaming services in particular are able just to commission way more content from abroad, which I think Netflix has already said it will do. Something like an extra 25% of its content will come from Japan and South Korea over the next however many years it might be. But that they can shift around very, very easily in a way that major studios, American-based studios, can't. So obviously the union has to recognize that fact and attempt to get around that. But of course, that's a non-starter as far as the streaming service is concerned. No studio would ever agree to shackle itself to a domesticated union in that way. But more foreign TV is probably not a bad thing. You get more new ideas. It's not quite so infected with the same cultural mindset as a lot of American media is. It's one of the reasons so much Japanese media is popular at the moment anyway, is because they don't share those same ideas. So having more of that on our screens would probably only be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at, we obviously had things like One Piece getting adapted on Netflix. It's like that. Their cultural take on storytelling plays well over here, because they stick to like the classic tenets of good storytelling. They're not trying to infuse it with current day Californian ideology. And look what we get. It can be done.
It's the same thing that plays out, between manga and comics. Manga outsells comics for a very good reason. Manga sticks to storytelling. Comics don't really give a shit about storytelling anymore. American media doesn't really give a shit about storytelling, but other markets do. And so other markets' products tend to be much more popular. I think RRR came up in the chat as well, which I still need to see. But yeah, between that and like Squid Game and other sort of, well-known, Parasite's another one. There's plenty of them out there, and that they're good for the same reasons. Even One Piece, has its flaws, but its basic fidelity to its source material is what makes it such a catching proposition. It's not quite like anything else you're seeing on TV.
Yeah, so we might get better ideas out of this, just not from America. That's all right. And to answer the chat, I talking specifically about American unions, but not to reflect anybody's opinions here, but I hate unions. I don't like unions. I think they're useless, especially when it comes to entertainment. I think it should be a gig economy. That's basically what the rest of our artistic, you don't see unions in comic books, you don't see unions in publishing. It's just in Hollywood, and it's to keep the Hollywood system going. I'd love to see it all break up. And in that way, we could spread out and get more independent creators and better ideas. Because quite frankly, Hollywood's ideas over the last few years have been shit.
Yeah. I mean, I always think that, like, whenever you refuse to provide the product or the service that your customer wants, someone else is going to step in and take over. And it might be that, they start bringing in more stuff from Japan, South Korea. We saw the example last week where it was like Disney have got Snow White on the go. The Daily Wire decided, fuck it, we're just going to make our own Snow White. And, there's probably a lot of goodwill towards that, even if it's like done on a fraction of the budget, because it's just like, someone who's not trying to subvert it and who's not trying to push modern day ideology in it. They just want to tell the classic fairy tale story that's somewhat accurate to the source material. It's crazy, but that's kind of what people want, and eventually someone's going to crack that.
Yeah, it was a troll. It's an obvious troll, but they had the ability and the money to do it. So why not? You know, especially they used that announcement to announce their other. I think they have an app that they're going to have some children's programs on or whatever. So it was smart. And if Disney was smart, they wouldn't release Snow White.
Yeah,
but they're not smart.
I'm a little bit wary of if you have political echo chambers, to refer to my own name, and you have social media echo chambers. I don't like the idea of that expanding into entertainment echo chambers where people have their own iterations that they can gravitate to of a property. I think there's something kind of mean-spirited about that, which puts aesthetics and creativity way in the background.
It'd be funny, yeah. It'd be funny if the same company made it. It's like, we're gonna make like a version of freaking 101 Dalmatians like for liberals, and then we'll make another one for conservatives. Like, there's two different versions, and you can just go see the one that suits you best. Like, it should be done.
The really sad thing, is that model would work. Financially, that model would work. That's the saddest thing, because
it probably would. Yeah, it's just a recut version, but like, you'd like to think that these things are produced for artistic reasons, and they just want to tell the best story that they can, and the making money is just something that naturally flows out of that, producing a good product. But we live in a world that's so hyper polarized that, like, ultimately the political leanings of the makers of whatever thing you put out comes to the fore, and it's like it becomes like a selling point or a point of detraction now.
But the money value thing ultimately will determine effectively which one tacks to the center. The most successful of the two options will be the one that appeals to the most people. And that usually entails ditching some of the more hyper-partisan angles that you might want to throw in it. If the Daily Wire puts out a Snow White, which is basically just the source material, I wouldn't call that necessarily right-wing Snow White. I would just call that Snow White. And if it does that, then it will probably be more successful than the Disney one, if the Disney one turns out, as we all think it will, to push particular agendas to a minority of the audience. So, like, you are balkanizing at the moment and polarizing at the moment. But ultimately, the winner in that polarizing battle is going to be who can cater to the largest audience possible. And that must entail ditching some of your extremes in favor of gaining more of an audience on the other side. So, like, this particular moment is quite bad for it, but eventually the winner will emerge, and the winner will be the person who just goes back to entertainment as opposed to politics of the left or the right.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the ideal scenario to get into, and I think that's what we've always advocated on all of our different channels. It's like, hey, how about you just ditch the political messaging and just like get back to telling a story for the sake of telling a story. That was what made companies like Disney so successful for decades upon decades. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary. They've survived as long as they have because they appealed to that mass market that was not interested in one political agenda over another. It was just escapist entertainment. That's what they really wanted. Be nice to see that again.
It would be nice to see corporations not getting involved in identity politics or state politics at all, because it's really dumb. It bit Bud Light in the ass, and it's biting Disney in the ass for getting involved in state politics they need to get involved in. You know what? You appreciate your employees, but if any of my employees at the comic shop were demanding I made a political statement about something, I'd tell them to shut the fuck up. That's not my job.
Still remember someone posting about The Little Mermaid, annoyed by alleged racist online, and responding to them and saying, "Well, I wasn't going to watch this, but now I'm going to watch the shit out of it just to annoy you." So that's your reason to go to the cinema.
I saw people same attitude towards The Last Jedi. It's like they were debating whether or not it was good, and like ended up being their attitude of I was kind of on the fence about it, but because you've been such an asshole, it solidified my opinion that this is like the greatest movie that's ever been made. And it's like I'm just liking it, essentially, just to piss off other people.
Wow,
that's a hell of a reason.
I haven't even heard of that before.
that's what it comes down to. Yeah, there you go. It's like I'm going to pretend to like something just because I know it pisses you off.
Captain Marvel.
That help. Yeah.
Captain Marvel. Oh, we're gonna own the chuds and like Captain Marvel. It was really good, chud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But hey ho, I mean I guess that's where we've ended up. But there was one other thing I was going to mention to you guys. It's a man by the name of Nelson Peltz. You might be familiar with him, and if you're Bob Iger, then you're almost certainly familiar with him. He is an activist investor who's been trying to buy up. Well, he has in fact bought up huge amounts of Disney stock over the past year or so, and he was really doing the rounds back at the start of the year because he was interested in getting a board seat on the Disney board because he felt that the company was heading in a bad direction, creatively, financially, for sure, under Bob Iger. And they were able to quieten him down to some extent because essentially Iger acquiesced to all of the things that he wanted. He wanted the mass firings that Bob Chapek had already begun, and he got it pretty much. But he bided his time to see how things panned out. And as things have collapsed over the past several months, he's begun to make his presence known again. And now he doesn't just own $1 billion of shares. He's increased that to $2.5 billion. And he is now gunning for not just one seat on the board, but multiple seats, with the view of potentially trying to unseat Bob Iger as CEO of Disney. And it's gathering a bit of momentum now. And it's kind of an interesting situation because, damn, one, you're trying to wrestle control of a sinking ship, but two, can you even unseat Bob Iger at this point? Or is he just like part of the Disney fabric now because he's been in it for so long?
I wouldn't have thought even ousting Bob Iger would be the ultimate goal. Because didn't he call off the original round of sort of aggressive share buying that they did back in February, I think it was called off when Bob Iger was announced as returning, and then obviously the layoff strategy was announced as well. And then he thought for a time, yeah, that's okay then. But since the stock price continues to go down and everything seems to be moving in the wrong direction, what he's doing is upping the amount of shares the company, I think Trian is his company, owns, and in return for a seat on the board. But that would be, I would assume, to try and influence Iger as opposed to remove Iger. But I don't know a huge amount about it.
When he did this initially, because Bob Iger was the CEO when he made his initial bid, because he did it under the banner of Restore the Magic. He made it clear back then, like, I'm not trying to unseat Bob Iger. That's not my goal. It's just purely to get a board seat and have a seat at the table, essentially, to have conversations about what we can do to fix this company. He hasn't made that same declaration this time. He hasn't assured people that he's not trying to get rid of Iger, which is kind of like, it's almost like by omission, it's like, well, he's tacitly saying, I want this guy out. Which is an interesting approach, but I don't blame him because Iger just seems to be making things worse with everything that he does, and he's just kind of out of ideas at this point. And probably he's too fucking old, and he's been in it for too long, and he's just burned out with this, and he's no longer capable of doing anything good. And so I don't blame this guy for trying to unseat him and get someone else in to replace him.
Nelson Peltz sounds like a goofy but lovable high schooler in a 1980s drama comedy.
Mm-hmm.
He might do, and it might be a goofy name, but this is a man with a proven track record of essentially doing what he's doing here, mounting not quite hostile takeovers, but basically being an activist investor, getting involved in the boards of various companies that are struggling and then turning them around. Now, he hasn't previously had a huge amount of investment in entertainment. It's been energy companies, that sort of thing, that he's worked on before, which is why he'd struggled to gain traction at the start of the year. But now he's more than doubled his share stake in Disney. So he has much more influence than he had before. And there's a real potential now for him to actually do this. And he seems to share the opinion that essentially that we've given on our various channels, you know, that Disney's gotten too involved in politics, like political battles that they can't hope to win. The quality of their products is suffering greatly, and it's tarnishing their brand. And they're also overextended into far too many different studios they've gone way beyond their animation studio roots to the point where they're just on everything and they can't sustain it. And so there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of merit to his perspective on this. I just have no clue if he's got any chance of success.
I don't either, but from Puck News, it's people who used to work with Deadline and Hollywood Reporters behind a paywall, but it's my job, so I subscribe to it for now. Wrote a whole article on this. I'll just read you the last paragraph. So earlier this year, fending off Peltz's proxy fight was a nuisance. This time around, it could end up derailing the whole Disney enterprise. In my estimation, Iger has two choices: either concede to Peltz, give him his board seats, and take his advice, or resign and turn over the job to a successor who has the willingness to think about Disney in a whole new way. And he's definitely not doing the latter.
Do you think he regrets not staying out instead of doing the drop out, come back out, back in thing?
He never really dropped out. Like, he was like essentially hovering over Bob Chapek.
He kept his old office, didn't he? Like the really big grand office that was his. He didn't let Chapek have it. He kept it himself.
And he wasn't even out of the company. Like, it was in some kind of like supervisor advisory
He was chairman of the
role.
board for
in
the
that
first
case.
year.
Like,
Yes.
Do you think maybe he's thinking about that should have been legitimately my out?
Yeah.
Because
He should have left then.
it was a
'cause I
good
think
time to leave.
He would have maintained a pretty good legacy. You know, the guy who oversaw Disney's expansion into like the acquisition of Marvel, Pixar, Lucasfilm, all these things. You know, some were more successful than others, but whatever. Like, he got the company to new heights, and then he turned it over to his successor to try and make a go of it. And you could easily say Chapek fucked it up. Ironically, Chapek took their share value to the highest point it's ever been, and actually was starting to address some of the problems, like firing people who were just clearly not doing their jobs anymore and like trimming the fat. And he never got a chance to do it. And
No, I don't think Bob Iger's ego would allow him to retire. Sure, he wanted to, but like, this guy has a massive, massive ego. And I mean, he bailed out right before the coup. And you don't think he had somebody whispering in his ear from Washington, like, this thing is coming, we're going to shut down everybody? Because there were whispers going around already. It wasn't some last minute thing. They were preparing for this stuff. And he probably got some inside knowledge and said, this is a good time to bail, and I could come back and be the savior. And now he gets to lord over his own disasters, the disasters of his making. And I call that justice. I call it justice.
The ego thing is a powerful one, though. He's effectively the dictator of a very small country, but with actually quite a medium-sized country. Dictators in charge of countries don't usually step away and let it go. Well, they try, and then they get bored, and they come back and say, well, I want to control from behind the scenes, or I want to be back in charge. Let me have at it, please. Problem is, his anointed successor in Chapek actually bounced himself into a lot of the trouble that Disney's in legally at the moment. Purely through just complete stupidity and idiocy. The whole parental rights education thing, Disney hadn't come out against it, was criticized by some people for not coming out against it. So Chapek went out and said, oh no, we were very against it, trust us. And then lo and behold, starts this entire legal battle with Ron DeSantis and loses a huge amount of Disney's core audience. That was just cowardice and stupidity, but that's the person that Iger left in charge. So to the extent he's picking up a mess, he is also picking up a mess of his own making. He made the wrong decision.
Oh, Chapek definitely made it worse. Remember, his first statement was, "We want to stay out of politics," which was the right thing to do.
Oh yes,
and
if he honestly, he would have taken a lot of heat from the activists within the company and probably a few people in the media. But if he had just stuck to that line, he would have saved himself so much grief.
Unless he was just there to be the fall guy, and Chapek's kicking it on some Caribbean island.
It has been proven that if you stand up to the activists, you can win. Like with the Hogwarts Legacy supposed boycott, that turned out to be rubbish. And with Netflix, they wanted to get rid of Dave Chappelle, but the management just said, no, if we have these particular values and it's up to you to measure up to them. And if that's not for you, then you might want to try somewhere else. So you can stand up to the activists, and it's been proven through precedent that you can endure it.
Yeah. I think it's difficult when you're a new CEO to a massive company like Disney and your predecessor is chairman of the board and essentially like looming over your shoulder. I imagine that's a pretty tricky situation to be in because you don't have full control over everything and you don't have full power to do all this stuff.
Wouldn't let Chapek have his office. But
I mean, that's just
because of the shower.
That is petty.
It's so petty, dude.
Do you think he handed over the key to the executive washroom, or did he keep that as well?
He probably kept that as well.
I think so. It's like, surely a company as massive as that, like, okay, I can just pay to have a shower installed in my office too. It'll be fine. Unbelievable. Yeah,
No,
like that's how mundane these people are.
You can't have my shower. Of course I have enough milk. It's a dominance thing. It's weird.
That is how mundane these people are. But
Yes.
man, yeah, it's just a crappy position to be in now, to have almost been out and then to come back in thinking that you're going to be the savior, and you're essentially overseeing the demise of your own company and everything that you've built. Like, your legacy is just slowly getting eroded day by day.
And the rats are fleeing the sinking ship. The access media is turning on, and they're being critical of Marvel films. And now we're hearing rumors of departments. You know, well, the head of Pixar came out and basically said, yeah, we've kind of lost our way. Yeah, Disney has lost its way. All its subsidiaries have lost its way. Getting rid of John Lasseter was dumb. That killed Pixar overnight. And it was over what? He hugged people. You know,
but
so
the trifecta of Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, the trifecta of everything going downhill, and even within Lucasfilm, the Star Wars part and the Indiana Jones part, like everything.
Still got their live action stuff then as well.
I mean, it's in 2015, 2016, they must have just been laughing their asses off. Like, you know, we've had a massively successful Star Wars movie. Like, Star Wars is back, baby. Marvel is going strong. Pixar is going strong. Like, everything that we've bought over is just doing great. It's an awesome time to be at Disney. And then since about 2017, 2018, it's just been a decline. And then now everything is just in free fall. Like, if I was put in charge of Disney right now, I would just quit immediately and be like, no, I'm not doing this.
Well,
I don't even know what
having the Lion King and like live action quote unquote movie and Endgame out in the same year. Those two made shit tons of money. So they must have felt okay as well at that point, right? Like, drunk on power a little bit.
Yep. And then you obviously could have made up for the shortfalls or the decline of the Star Wars movies with the fact that the MCU was still going strong, but now you don't have that either. And it just feels like everything that they put out just seems to be failing. They're kind of stumbling from one failure to another.
Well, yeah, and the strike doesn't help. Like, this contraction was going to happen anyway, strike or not. Like, they were going to shrink. Streaming wasn't doing as well. Disney Plus, which was supposed to be profitable by next year, profitable by next year with over 250 or 225 million subscribers, just not going to happen. Yeah, this was going to happen anyway. The strike just made it infinitely worse. It is a biblical disaster. And we're not going to see like the fallout from it until starting in next year. Starting in next year, you're going to see some, like, it'll look like COVID again. That year after COVID, it'll be nothing. It'll be crazy. You'll have to do other things. You'll have to watch Clarkson's Farm over and over again, like I'll do.
Oh no,
I could happily do that. Yeah,
I would definitely do that.
Yep.
I mean,
if they got really desperate, they could move Ironheart back up, couldn't they? Fill the gap with some quality entertainment.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I recommend they do that. I think they should.
Just show She-Hulk on an endless loop. I think, give the people what they want and all that.
Velma season 2, that must be nearly done.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, that was essentially just season 1, wasn't it? They split it. Yeah. They did that crazy thing that they do where they film all the episodes and then they split it to pretend that it's like actually 2 seasons when it was just 1. You're not going to fool us, Mindy Kaling.
Mindy Kaling was such a hot name out there, and then her deal got cut off by Warner Brothers.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Come back, Mindy. We miss you.
I thought she was like the hottest new thing because everybody who hated on that show made her super successful in Hollywood. I thought that was...
Yeah, I thought it brought more attention to the show. I mean, it's really worked for Robin.
Bloody hate watchers again.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how most media is successful. In fact, most of the most famous movies of all time are only the way they are because of how much everyone hated them.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, everybody hated Star Wars when it came out.
Yeah, everybody hated
Yep.
everything. That's just how it goes.
Back in the 70s, they were just relying on the YouTube commentary community to roast them and draw attention.
It was
to
all
them.
16 millimeter, right? So we had to film it on
It was
cameras.
a weird time back then.
It was
Yeah.
weird. Yeah,
Live streams were an absolute nightmare.
they were. Holy shit.
Having to mail out the fucking film to
Yep.
people. No, but that's well, I guess that's the position that Disney find themselves in now. So
Yep.
we're probably
Bent
going to
over.
hear more over the next few weeks, I suppose, in terms of Nelson Peltz and his takeover bids. I mean, I have no idea whether he can get a seat on the board with all of this. Like when you have $2.5 billion, dollars worth of stock in Disney,
It's got to count for something.
yeah, I mean, it's probably worth less than it was when I started this sentence, but it's still something,
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned earlier in this stream actually that Disney stock had dropped below $80 a share, which used to be the absolute floor. That was considered impossible.
Yeah.
They can't drop below $80 a share. Apparently they can, and they do it
It's-
quite regularly now.
Currently at $79.78.
Yep.
Yeah. The Disney-DeSantis battle has been a really interesting one. It sort of started off around sort of January or February, I think, when DeSantis made his move. And he was at a stage where he thought that he was quite likely or quite possibly going to be the Republican nominee, that Trump would fade. So he had this kind of lane where Florida is where woke goes to die, and then he would show his credentials by taking on Disney. And initially it seemed to work, but then he just got kind of bogged down. And in a wider sense, large swaths of general people thought, why are you attacking Mickey Mouse and Disney? And so it kind of didn't work out in the long run. And then Disney, not being able to create good entertainment, is nonetheless still incredibly adept at being able to fuck people over the long term with huge amounts of lawyers and dragging people into the complexities of entertainment law and all of that, and having their own little principality for tax purposes. So the whole thing got incredibly complicated, and it started to sort of weigh on both. So it kind of
It was
like
a nice little clever little move. DeSantis announces, I'm going to take over the board for Reedy Creek. And Disney says, okay, but we're going to transfer all the powers from the board of Reedy Creek over to Disney as a company. So you can have it, but you can't do anything. And also you have to abide by all the stuff we've already agreed in terms of contracts for development, construction, and all the rest of it. That's what part of what the current lawsuit is about, which will take ages to do away with because it's multifaceted. So that you have the free speech angle, then you have the countersuit from DeSantis, which is saying that the contracts that Disney signed with itself are not valid because Disney signed them knowing that it wasn't going to be signing them with itself in the long run. It was signing them with the state of Florida. And actually what they're doing is removing regulatory arbitrage, but Disney is saying, no, that it's completely ours now, so you are contractually obliged. Also stop infringing on our right to free speech because corporations are people. It's a nice hot mess, but it's kind of, if you're legally minded, it's entertaining. If you're a normal person, I suspect it's probably boring as fuck, but I quite like it.
Now it's gone into federal court, where you have to do what happens now in America, where you just hope that the federal appointee was appointed by Donald Trump or was appointed by Obama, and hope that whichever lawyer you get is going to sort it out. And there's probably, imagine it could go to the Supreme Court. How bananas would that be? That
would be crazy. But it would also draw on Disney's resources. And this whole thing made them look bad. However it ends, it doesn't matter. Coming against that you're going against your core audience. You were a family brand. People don't see it that way, and it's kind of a attrition thing. It's entropy, people are still going to the parks, but just not as much. And as our good friend Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers has pointed out, market share is an important thing, especially in the parks world in Florida, and Universal has definitely been encroaching on that and will continue to do so, and that's a big deal.
Well, the parks was the only part of their thing which was actually making them money.
Yeah.
So that's coming down. Then that's the quad. What's the four things? Trifecta becomes a quadrology of failure. Yeah.
I mean, because they essentially cut down to like 1/3 capacity during COVID. Then it was up to a half, and they've never recovered from that, really, have they? Like they've never gotten back to full capacity ever since COVID's happened. You know, now they might have lifted the restrictions, but it's just like nobody wants to go to their actual theme parks. Probably because they're horrendously overpriced and
they're really
not
expensive
really
and complicated now. It's
Yeah.
pretty complicated and expensive. I'll never go. I'll never set foot in one ever again.
Well, I think it's essentially like a military operation now. You need to download the Disney app, but then like, have you got the double, triple, platinum, gold version of the app that costs like an extra, $500 to get? Because that's the one that gets you to book all your rides like 6 years in advance. And then you have to like run your trip there like a military operation. Like, we must get to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride within the next 2 minutes, or we miss our ride. That's doesn't
Even
seem
have
like
stormtroopers to enforce it. They really are a dictatorial regime.
doesn't feel like a fun visit to a theme park where you're literally just traipsing from one ride to another. Within all these like set guidelines.
And I never had the chance to go to the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel where I could spend $5,000 for a weekend to be in a small windowless room and be taken there by a panel van. So I missed that opportunity.
It wasn't a van, it was a shuttle. You've got to just suspend your disbelief of being shipped in the back of a Ford Transit into a fucking shipping container. No, suspend your disbelief. That's how you do it.
You got
£6,000 to use your imagination.
If you've ever wondered what it's like to be human trafficked, though, you could just put yourself into that panel van and just absorb yourself in it. That's the real experience right there. Apparently, that's
from Disney. You might actually become human traffic. You never know.
Yeah. The rumor is that that's going to get repurposed as well. So they're going to go for like more of a New Hope theme to it, where it's going to be set. When Darth Vader and his stormtroopers storm aboard that rebel blockade runner.
Sorry, which movie is that based on?
A New Hope?
It's the one where the guy bumps his head.
Yes.
I feel like
so that invalidates
don't
all.
much care about those ones.
They don't really.
Oh, that's the movie.
That's the rumor anyway.
Where we meet the quitter.
The story of the quitter.
The story of the quitter. The quitter's journey.
But yeah, imagine if they did that and it was like a huge success. It's like, oh my god, maybe these movies were kind of popular after all. Who knows?
What was the takeaway from Ahsoka? It was Anakin, not anything else. So it's just like they always go back every single thing. It's like, what does Thanos say? Your failure brought you back to me, or whatever. That's basically the OT, just staring at Disney like every time back to me.
Just Luke Skywalker just going, I am inevitable.
Imagine having watched Ahsoka and then you see The Empire Strikes Back when that last lightsaber duel, Darth Vader gets struck on the side of his arm by Luke's lightsaber and he wails in pain. And if you'd seen Ahsoka, you'd go, well, why is he hurt? Like this lady got stabbed right through the middle.
Yeah, just walk that shit off. Well, imagine how blown away you would be by the Phantom Menace. Like, Qui-Gon Jinn, what? He's dead?
Why did he die? That loser?
Yeah.
He's a lightsaber impalement.
I suppose that's the funny part of the idea that there's generations growing up today. It's like, oh, what do you show them? How do you show what timeline? You're like, what do you mean? I'm just going to show them
Qui-Gon Jinn got
maybe
stabbed.
the prequels.
So Qui-Gon Jinn, he just got stabbed through the middle, whereas Darth Maul, he got literally cut in half, but he still survived and came. He's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah, no one's truly gone. That's the thing.
No.
I think Qui-Gon actually is listed in the Jedi Archives, and they had to make a special entry for him as a person who died of a lightsaber wound. And it's such a rare thing that he's documented as one of the only known cases of that.
Yeah, he just had a weak constitution.
Yep.
Could have walked it off, it would have been fine, but nah, just succumbed to it. I think he just got bored and died. Probably the way
he knew where Star Wars was heading. He was like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him, but how amazing was it to see him like just do that little cameo in Obi-Wan Kenobi? It was just so special.
They had him in his fucking outfit. They could have gotten him to record enough lines that he could have just been a voice throughout the season helping Obi-Wan, like a character, you know?
Yeah.
The person who would inspire. Why did they make the 5-year-old girl the thing that inspires Obi-Wan? I don't know.
Nope.
Force is female. That's why they did it.
Yep.
Not even Luke is allowed in there. He had a one flash frame.
Force is not male; it's female. Mauler.
It's got to be a little bit of male in there, right? Just a little bit.
Not anymore.
Tiny bit.
Nope.
Nothing good, really. It's all going to be, anything good that happens to do with the Force is going to be female related. I think we can guarantee that now.
Which means we're not going to get anything good.
You didn't enjoy Ahsoka, Gary?
I did not enjoy Ahsoka, although I'm told it's the best Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back.
Are they still saying that? I think it's too late now. Nobody's saying that anymore.
You best to, people get on us prejudging. When we prejudge a film and a TV show, it's usually, I'll speak for all of us here. I can do that, right? You guys don't mind. It's based on what we've seen before. We've seen patterns repeat themselves. And, we could be wrong on some stuff, but it's like, wow, the Marvels really looks like shit. And it probably will be. And the same thing happened with Ahsoka. It's best to let the series finish before you start calling it as good as The Empire Strikes Back, because that's a repeated pattern with everything on Disney Plus. First couple episodes, zowie, this is so great. And by the end, it's, oh, shit, this went nowhere.
We never said that. IGN, we gave it a 9. Now we say it's crap.
Yeah.
I know.
Interesting though.
I described like Ahsoka as well as like the 4th Disney Plus series in a row that's going to save Star Wars.
Yes. Hey, no, the Acolyte's going to do it, Drinker. That's the one.
That's the one. Yeah, I've got full confidence in Leslie Headland,
former Harvey Weinstein assistant.
One thing that is interesting is that outlets like Screen Junkies with honest trailers or Pitch Meeting, even they're tearing into Ahsoka. So everyone hates the show, and they're pretty mainstream. So that's telling for me.
Well, we kind of saw Star Wars Theory flip on it towards the end too, as much as he could. But
he flipped on it because he didn't get Darth Maul.
Next, you're going to tell me that Angry Joe criticized it. Like,
I have no
whatever
idea.
Next.
I thought he didn't like it for the same reasons we did, right? Like shitty characterization, wasted time, contradictions, fucking everywhere. But no, it's because he wanted the Night Sisters to summon Darth Maul, and that's what he didn't get. Everyone was making fun of him on Twitter for that. I was like, what? That's what? So if Darth Maul had showed up, you would have thought it would be really good?
No. That wouldn't have been good. That wouldn't have been good at all.
Do you think he's got like a little bit of a blind spot for all this stuff?
Oh, maybe. I mean, I think we all have a relative blind spot set for Star Wars. We're all at different degrees, right? Because I feel like the finale for Mando season 2 is not remembered as well written. It's just seeing Luke not be shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a level, that's a bar that a lot of people needed cleared. But that doesn't work anymore. If they were to do that again, repeat that scene, no one's gonna give a shit anymore that did that. Well, not no one, but at least within our spheres, I don't think.
I mean, in retrospect, it's really pathetic watching people cry over that scene when you realize like just how like
I got loads of shit for that, Drinker, at the time. Do you remember?
Well, now it's safe for me to say it, so I'm gonna say
I was fucking dead buried by the fucking audience for that take.
Drinker's being way more strategic than you, Mahler.
Yeah, I bided my time, Mahler, let the rage simmer within me. No, just how fucking contrived and like unearned that whole thing was. But it's just like a key, a really, really shiny key that they jangled in a particularly seductive way in front of people. And that's all it took. Human beings are dumb, mindless, easily influenced sheep for the most part. And they will lap that shit up.
It was instructive though, because all those people, when you criticize something like Ahsoka, and you will reliably get people pop up in the comment section saying, "Oh, Star Wars fans are just impossible to please," and you go back and say, "Well, actually, no, because look how many people were pleased just at seeing Luke not be a cuck. That was incredibly important to lots of people. Wasn't very well written, didn't really make a huge amount of sense, didn't develop into anything, but nevertheless, just seeing the guy made a difference. And a lot of people were really positive about the show just for that scene. This has been said. Star Wars fans aren't impossible to please. They just need occasionally things not to be complete dog shit."
And it's like the ideas as well are not mutually exclusive. It's like, okay, as a Star Wars fan, someone who appreciates the original trilogy, you can say like, well, I don't want just really like mindless, cynical key jangling of just showing me stuff that's vaguely familiar, like he Vadered, or like showing me Obi-Wan, or showing me Darth Maul coming back, or whatever. Stuff that's completely unearned and just like you threw it in because you knew it was something familiar. I could say that is shit because it's unearned, but I can also say that like someone like Rian Johnson just going off on his own tangent and just going into business for himself because he wants to be a fucking auteur director and subvert our expectations is also shit because it's a person who's got no respect for the source material and just wants to like completely fucking destroy it all. Both of those extremes are bad. I don't want either of those things. What I want is this crazy middle ground where you respect the source material and you work within it, but you also tell just a story with a little bit of integrity of its own.
It's crazy. How many comments
shouldn't be that hard
on that Star Wars' Can't Grow Up video. Those people saying like, I'll take this over the sequels. It's like, that was never the dichotomy. Why is that? That I don't want to have to deal with crappy assassination or key jangling. Why the fuck are those my two choices?
Yeah, I'll take flaming garbage over having to swim in diarrhea. That, like, what the hell? It's all garbage.
Yeah.
Where it was done well, it was still fan service. I hate that term now. But Picard season 3, they had to contrive some stuff. They had to put the Enterprise D in a museum, and Geordi was piecing it together, but they still made it an integral part of the story that they built up to. And when I was watching it, I should have said they deed when they Enterprise
they enterprised their way out of that.
They enterprised their way out of that, but it was still like really cool and satisfying. You're right, Drinker. There's some common ground there. It doesn't have to make all the sense in the world if you show the fans respect, and fans of that show.
Yeah,
I think the third season did.
They polished that turd as shiny as they could have got it.
Yeah,
that's at best. I think that's what we can say there. And to be fair, they did a reasonably good job. But it's not that hard to satisfy the fans, like you say.
No,
if it seems like the intent behind it is genuine, I don't think we've gotten that with anything from Disney. Maybe Andor. That was about as close as we got, but that was so. It was so obscure in terms of the characters it was dealing with that like it just didn't pull in the audience. And it's a shame.
That was one of the criticisms quite often made of Andor, is that it wasn't key jangly enough. Like there weren't enough recognizable things in it. You couldn't see enough.
Maurice Randolph said. Do you guys remember her review? It was like, this is this story, but there was no Obi-Wan, no Vader, no mentions of any kind of. You got to have that in there. That was like her recommendation to fix the show. Which the irony, of course, is. Had they threw in a couple of references to fucking Anakin or Vader, whatever, maybe more people would have watched it.
Isn't that interesting, though? It's like Star Wars can only be good now when it references Star Wars
itself. Yeah.
And that's what Disney have done to it now. Absolutely fucking destroyed it. Because I feel like the prequels struck out on their own little island in Star Wars lore. And George was like, yeah, fuck it, okay. Obviously, you'd be like, what do you mean? When the two of the main characters are Vader and Obi-Wan. It's like, yeah, but not... That ain't Vader. That's Anakin. That's baby Vader. Some people don't even accept that. Gary, I think you might be one of them. But like Obi-Wan, yeah, people like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. It's like, yeah, okay, what else? It's like most of it's new. Most of it's all new stuff.
I think with the Andor, with Andor, people were I think we're all pining for Star Wars that was grounded and a bit more gritty. But when it actually came, I think it actually missed some of the essential Star Wars DNA, which is part of the other way, where it can be a little bit goofy and it can have silly stuff in it as well. That's part of Star Wars as well. So to get to a position now where I'm watching Ahsoka and it's garbage and diuretic swill, and then it has a little bit of Anakin Skywalker in a dream/death sequence, and it's that guy from that thing which I never liked from that other thing, which was a letdown after the original good thing. There's so many layers of I think to go through.
I honestly think it's fascinating in some ways to see all these different creators and their crazily different takes on what Star Wars is. It's like handing a bunch of I hesitate to use the word artist here, but handing a bunch of different humans the same artistic brush, and the same paints and the same canvas, and just telling them to go nuts and do what they want to do. That's what you get. Yeah. That's essentially what you get now.
There's an interview with Jon Favreau where I think he's talking about, is it Skeleton Crew, the one that's coming up at the moment, describing pretty much exactly this. So he says, yeah, the great thing about Star Wars is that it can be anything you want it to be. So, the original Star Wars, it was part samurai, part World War II, part Western. So Star Wars can be any one of these individual things. And whenever a director comes, they pitch the idea to Kathy, for example, and they say, I want this to be like good old-fashioned Spielberg of the 1980s. And Kathy was there, so Kathy says yes. And then a different person does episode 2, and they want it to be this weird sort of film noir space western mix. And Kathy says, yeah, fine, why not? The only criteria they apply, at least according to Jon Favreau, is they all have to sit there, or at least the people in charge sit there, and do they say, well, is it aesthetically like Star Wars? If everyone agrees that it is, then it's green lit. And that kind of reveals probably quite a lot about the weird shifts in tone, even between the individual episodes of, say, Mando or Ahsoka, and also the general lack of direction and cohesion throughout all of Disney Star Wars. There isn't an actual understanding of what Star Wars is. Everybody does have different ideas. The only thing the people in charge care about is that it looks vaguely like Star Wars. And that seems to be all they need. Good luck getting a coherent story out of that.
And it makes the cross-pollination seem weird and stilted now. So if you have Mon Mothma in the grounded, gritty Andor series, and then you have her appear in the silly, childish, dumb Ahsoka series, the cross-pollination looks weird and jilted now because you got different
She's
aesthetics.
not the same character between those two shows at all.
I can't buy those two shows being in the same universe. That's insane. It doesn't make any sense. It's clown show and then real show. I was just thinking about Force Awakens, even because about how they've trained their audience, Disney at this point. Like Force Awakens, you had Stormtrooper that is, questioning his allegiance, a pilot who's really great, and a girl on some desert planet, which is obviously a copy of Luke. But for the sake of the point here is that Force Awakens launching seemed like the fans were more than ready for a new section of the universe to have new stories. And it's like, also Han is here. It's like, okay, yeah, and but look at it now. It's like completely devolved into we've only got the things you like from before because you do not trust us. We don't even trust ourselves to do new shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at Mando. Like the whole premise behind that was like, okay, let's look at Star Wars from the perspective of just a low-level bounty hunter who does like just simple missions of like find a guy, bring him in, or like you need to like recover something from a group of people and fight a bunch of monsters and then take it back. Like easy stuff. It's still set within the Star Wars framework, but it's very much from a different point of view because it's a different character. Great, but then that became the one successful thing that they had, and so they start to then fold all the Star Wars elements into it, and so it's got to have lightsabers, it's got to have the Sith, it's got to have the Empire, it's got to have all these fucking familiar elements because we can try and milk this a little bit more instead of saying let's show this from a different point of view. That would have been okay.
It's like
the problem is
the OT being this like fertile tree that all these branches would be all the different IPs that are springing off of it, and then it's like as the sequels came out and rotted through the whole thing, it's like Mando as a branch came off that. It's like, oh, that's healthy. Look at that branch go. And then they branched off Book of Boba Fett, which like curled over and just rotted through straight away as a branch. Then the branch was still a bit of life left. Oh, there goes Ahsoka. Off comes, oh, that's another. And it's like, yeah, that's rotted off and died. And it's like, how is the Mando branch doing? It's like Jack Black and Lizzo just fucking crashed that branch. It's broken.
Yep.
It's all gone.
Yep.
It's like, okay, where the branch that came from? It's like, that's already dead. It's all fucked.
Yeah.
The thing I don't understand is that for me, the key to Star Wars, which they can't seem to do, and I don't understand why they can't do it, is the engaging and exciting clash and interplay of different personalities. Like if you have Han Solo with 3PO, there's always that hilarious interplay between those two, or the interplay between an emerging, scented mystic in Luke and the old rogue of Han Solo, or Han Solo and Leia, the regal princess and the outlaw cowboy character. The interesting interplay of different personalities clashing and in interesting ways is something they have nothing. It's just so inert in the characters they have interplaying in the current one.
But I think those interplays between different characters from different origins with different worldviews and experiences was all an offshoot of the fundamental hero's journey of like a character, your Luke Skywalker, starting from a really dull but safe backwater like life that he eventually gets he leaves behind and goes on this big epic sweeping adventure across the galaxy where he encounters all these different people who get thrown together into this mix because they're all caught up in this grand adventure. The essence of Star Wars was meant to be adventure. A person going out into the world and taking part in all these great conflicts and experiencing all this stuff, meeting all these different people, facing all these dangers, overcoming all these obstacles, and becoming a better, stronger person at the end of it. And the interplay between the characters was just a natural result of that. It's the most simple, as it's been covered so many times before, it's the most simple hero's journey thing that's been done in every fantasy novel ever, just transposed into a science fiction setting. That's all it is, and it's simple, it's effective, it works incredibly well because it plays on that basic human desire to see beyond what we have in our day-to-day lives and experience something more. The desire for adventure.
Which Disney never had. Like,
no.
What's the one thing that was missing from Disney Star Wars? Force Awakens, I think Jar Jar Abrams, with his very limited talent, tried to be fun, but while completely copying Episode 4. But the Disney Star Wars has not been fun. It's like it's been the opposite of fun. And it's all based on your characters, and they haven't been able to write a single interesting, compelling character. And I guess the one people might consider the Mandalorian. You don't see his face. You don't see his face. You don't see facial expressions. And one of the biggest problems is their approach is, Mandalorian could have been a show on its own that could have lasted 10 seasons of him just going after marks, going after.
Yes.
They didn't let the show be itself. All of a sudden they had one success. This is streaming. This isn't just Disney. This is streaming. They had one success. They're like, oh my God, we're influential. We need to change everything.
Exactly. Everything had to be hung off that then. Yep. Everything had to be tacked onto it. It had to be all about this epic, conflict. It couldn't just be this low-level guy who just goes on little episodic adventures. It had to be suddenly this huge, grand universe that he's all the core of. Because
there's an interview on Sir Alec Guinness in 1977. He's on Parkinson, that talk show. Yeah. And he just says of Star Wars, he just says of the project, it's very simple stuff, and people are going to read far too much into it. Oh, Sir Alec, if you only knew what 2023 looked like.
Oh, it's the Beatles. That's why I always equate Star Wars to the Beatles. The people read and still do. I like the band, but they read far too much into the Beatles. Who were just doing a lot of drugs and making some good music. But
like John Lennon. John Lennon said about Sgt. Pepper's. He said, apart from the first song and the so-called introduction of Ringo Starr and his, and then the so-called reprise at the end, any other song could have been on any other album, but we said it made sense as a concept album, so it did.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's so the same for Star Wars. You laid it out great, Drinker. It was a simple hero's journey about a farm boy and a trucker teaming up to save a princess in a semi-fantasy sci-fi world that was really built on the fantasy of the 70s, right? Heavy metal, all that stuff. That was big. Wizards painted on the side of vans. Like, that was the 70s. So it was of its time, but it was also something that looked so effing different. Like when the Star Destroyer comes out over at the beginning, no kidding, the crowds gasped. Like, people went, they had never seen anything like that before in their life. And it's kind of like, unless you were there, it's hard to explain. And the legend became so great. And what George did was he didn't explain the world. We got a lived-in looking world, but it was the backwaters. It was the desert, and our imagination filled in the rest. And that's what made it so epic. And that's what they've been trying to fill in that imagination for us, which they'll never be able to do.
Well, George Lucas, to give him his credit, George Lucas would say to this day, and he said on the Charlie Rose interview, that people who said Star Wars was always actually much more complicated than it seemed. Whether or not he's bullshitting, and I think he is prone to bullshitting, he makes it more complicated later on. The story does change a lot, but the fundamental storytelling difference between the OT and the prequel trilogy is that the OT is, it's the hero's journey. It's very sort of Joseph Campbell-esque, but it's all very personal. You are seeing through the eyes of a main character on the far reaches of the galaxy. You are aware that bigger, grander things are out there, but you don't necessarily encounter them unless they are completely relevant to the personal hero's journey. The prequels come along. It's hard even to tell you who the main character of at least 2 of those films is.
The first one.
And that's very much, that's a story about the galaxy, not about the character. You're not seeing it through anybody. That is George Lucas saying, no, this is actually a really, really deep and complex galaxy. Let me tell you about it. Plot? Well, it doesn't matter quite so much. What we need to do is make Star Wars really complicated. Then you go forward and it goes to the Clone Wars, and he wasn't involved with Rebels, but when the Clone Wars comes around and Filoni gets on board, you can see clips of George Lucas, interviews with George Lucas discussing the Clone Wars. He was deeply invested in that and had an awful lot of say in the creation of things like the World Between the Worlds, which Ahsoka has revealed to be quite a silly concept, and I think was a silly concept in the Clone Wars as well. But there were always deeper ideas there, and George Lucas always had those deeper ideas. It's just that by a sheer coincidence, he hired the right people in the original films to make a story work. And since then, he's been probably too far up his own ass. And Disney's carried on in a different way. It's just that Disney's version is shallow as well as nonsensical, whereas Lucas's was deep and nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to be said for like the elements that you leave out and leave up to the audience to fill in the gaps, like you say, Gary, with their own imagination, because that is a potent element of getting that air of mystery and just yearning for this world that's grander than what you see in front of you. Because I think to some extent, the more details that you fill in for the audience, the more it starts to rob the audience of that mystique. And their sort of vague imaginings of what lies in this world starts to give way to like, wow, what the concrete stuff that you're actually, trying to sell to them. And the more of that you do, the more it robs them of their own imagination to some extent. And I think that's why scenes like the binary sunset and A New Hope, the reason that's so affecting is because we've all been in that position before. We've all been stuck with the mundane stuff of everyday life and just like yearn for something bigger and grander and more exciting than what we have. And you can't always put it into words. You can't define it by something concrete. You don't necessarily need to. You just know that you feel that pull to do something more. And that's what Luke was feeling at that moment. And it appeals to pretty much anyone. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what your cultural background is. You probably experienced something like that in your life. That was the universality of the OT, because it was simple, it was elegant, it was easy, it was accessible to everyone. The more you fill in those blanks, the more specific you make it, the more you start to pare down that audience.
There's the moral aspect as well. It's morally optimistic and aspirational. The ultimate triumph of good versus evil is essentially the meta-narrative of the entire OT. You compare that with the sequel trilogy. It's, the good guys can be bad as well. There isn't really good and evil. Everyone's kind of grey. Also, Rey wins at the end. But you've destroyed the whole moral purpose of her winning, so I don't really care. Whereas at least with the original films, you could say, no, it was Luke's faith in Vader's goodness, ultimate goodness, that allowed him to survive, that allowed them to beat the Emperor. It's a simple moral tale as well, which we've completely lost.
Plus, the bad guys, they're no longer the bad guys, but they're still sort of also the bad guys because they're coming back as the bad guys and might return to being the main bad guys. So that's
it was that interview about the guy like who's going to be in The Acolyte, where he said like, the thing that's so interesting about Star Wars is there's no good or evil. It depends what side you're on. Fucking Christ!
It's the Last Jedi thing. Oh well, the arms dealer sells to the Rebellion and the First Order. That great, well done. That's how fighting works.
Thing is, though, even if you ask Disney, like Hux and Kylo, good guys or bad guys, it's like, we'll get back to you on that.
Just buy more of our merchandise and don't question it.
Bad fathers. That's what they had in common. Bad fathers.
Yep.
Huskus' dad is in. Was it Ahsoka or? I'm getting my Disney Plus.
Mando
season 3. Yeah.
Oh god, I'm so
sorry.
glad
I'm getting my shitty Disney Plus shows mixed up.
I do. Apparently, in the comics, Hux and Captain Phasma kill his father. Apparently, that's the thing that happens.
Dude, it's so wild. Hux is a completely different character in all 3 sequel films.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're just fucking tearing him apart and pushing him around all over the place. What Donald Gleason felt about that. He's not a bad actor. He's a good actor. He's just like loads of people in the sequels who are hired for their pedigree and they're not used. It's like, okay.
I can't get over like comparing Hux to like Admiral Piet from the OT. It's like, how the fuck? How is this guy in charge of like entire battle fleets? How's he in charge of the First Order? This absolute
that was
child
the thing for
just
Ryan.
screaming at people.
He said, "Wouldn't it?" Hux. He said in the audio commentary when he was writing for Hux, when he started up TLJ, he saw him in TFA and was like, "He's just a funny character. He's just so funny. I can't wait to do some jokes with him." It's like that. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Like what? I don't understand at all. It's like
Ryan,
he's just a funny character.
Rian just needs to make more movies to make weird people feel smart on Netflix that aren't that smart.
Knives Out 3 coming soon.
Oh yeah.
More Knives Out.
Dude, Glass Onion. Wow.
It's don't you get it though? It's dumb. That's the secret to its genius.
I said Drigger to Gary, I feel like he should see Glass Onion at some point just to it's such an unbelievable movie. Like what happens in that thing. I don't know how many people here have seen it. I know Drinker has.
God help me.
I have
seen it.
Yeah,
haven't I seen enough crap, Mahler?
No, you make everyone watch more crap anyway. You're watching Loki right now. Glass Onion movie time better specs.
Oh my God,
funnier.
there's an episode today. I know what happens.
Whoa.
I know the big shocking thing.
I know I don't care.
I know nobody's gonna care.
It's actually
2.5 hours of
even
2.5 hours of
summarize.
simpering, self-satisfied cleverness.
Yeah, I think if you could distill smug into a movie, then it would be
exactly.
It would be Glass Onion.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, and possibly Loki. Who knows?
You should still watch it, Gary, because I want to see your reaction to the destruction of the Mona Lisa.
I saw the Mona Lisa. I saw it a few weeks ago.
Were you as underwhelmed as I was?
Yeah. I almost wanted to throw orange paint on it. No, I'm just kidding.
I just think it's amazing that people flock past all these incredible masterpieces that are like the size of my entire fucking wall. That's just to get to the Mona Lisa, like, and then just take their picture and then
like
leave.
This big. And, I got a picture of all the phones in front of me taking a picture of the Mona Lisa, which tells the story, and it was like 100 people in front of me. And you're right, there's like so much better stuff there that we took the time to watch. We just kind of we saw it. Bye.
I was in the Vatican Museum, and there was a crowd of people around a painting, and there was this one dude who walked up. He saw that there was a crowd in front of it, and he was a little bit short, so he just raised his phone above the heads. He didn't see the picture. He didn't even know what the picture was. He just took a snap of whatever it was above the heads of the people in front of him.
All I noticed was
you could just Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, lots of boobs in that museum. Lots of boobs.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
I approve of that. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh yeah. France. Right.
Yeah.
On.
Paris is all good. Let's do a few super chats before we finish up for the day, shall we, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Go on.
All right. Tyler Wolf says, "Isn't Nelson Peltz the same guy who got his daughter to ruin Katara in The Last Airbender?" I don't think so. No,
I don't know.
I don't know. None of us have seen it. John Smith says, "Is it true that British women are the ugliest?"
No.
Scottish women, yes. I can vouch for that.
Prior to the fluoride in the water, I think with the teeth, you could probably make a case for that, I think. So a generation or two ago.
Well, the thing is, apparently Scottish women are often confused for Scottish men. And it's true that they're so alike to Scottish men that they seem like they are the same. It's the beards.
Well,
The thing is, Britain's produced some pretty top-notch hot people.
I seem to recall
They're all English, though. Karen Gillan. Karen Gillan.
I seem to recall Drinker coming to the meetup, and we're like, God, it's been really hot in London. It's wow, there's no bras anywhere, anywhere, and yeah, when it gets hot there, I guess bras are just not a thing.
They're not popular in London. No. Only there. Like that's the only place where ladies let them hang free. But it's always fun.
Sure.
Next one is Elsie Le Pen says, "We'd love to hear the bar's favorite voice actors and their roles from any media. It's one of my favorite acting methods where physical traits are completely moot." Favorite voice actors. My favorite is you, Mueller.
Kevin Conroy.
Your voice is delicious.
Kevin Conroy is an excellent choice. Yeah, he's super great all of his work. there's so many recognizable ones, and a lot of them are good actors as well. I was just thinking about because you know, it's dumb to say almost, but like Morgan Freeman, love it whenever he shows up in anything. You're like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Christopher Lee did some great voice work doing the Edgar Allan Poe stories, so that was pretty cool.
I'm gonna say that the actor I've come to really like is Ralph Ineson. He played Finchy in The Office, but like he's done so much. He's been in so many things recently, and he's done quite a lot of voice acting in video games and stuff as well. And I just love that Yorkshire accent with the deep sort of gravelly voice. He is just he is a real pleasure to listen to. Yeah, I must admit I like him.
Mel Blanc. Yeah, they mentioned that in the chat. Mel Blanc. He's the GOAT. The GOAT.
I keep thinking of people who are not exclusively voice actors. Because I was going to say Keith David's great whenever he shows up in video games as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He voiced Spawn in the animated series. It was really good.
Who was the guy who did the voiceover? Like, so
Clancy Brown. Hell yeah.
No, who played the concierge in the John Wick movies?
Oh, he just passed away.
Yes.
Lance
Reddick. Yes.
I want Hendrick. He's alive.
Yeah. Just
Lance Reddick.
Lance Reddick, yeah, he had a great voice as well.
That's actually Lance Henriksen. I love it when he shows up in audio, but then also as an actor.
Yeah.
Well, my suggestions just voice actors.
He looked old as fuck, even in like the Terminator. He's just like stayed like that basically his whole career.
What was the TV show that he was the main character?
Millennium.
Yeah, do you ever watch that?
Yeah, it's
a little bit. Yeah,
damn good show. Underrated.
I never saw it. What was it about?
It's like a psychic detective or something.
Yeah, it was very X-Files-y type of show. Very good.
It was an offshoot from something else, wasn't it?
I believe the X-Files. Yeah.
So, was it the X-Files?
Millennium. I'm pretty sure that was Chris Carter. God, getting old, forgetting things I used to know. TV show. The chat's gonna answer it already, but
got overrated. Great show.
Brian
Chris
Blessed.
Carter. Yeah, Chris Carter. Chris Carter. Yeah, it's a X-Files.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I knew who that was.
I will just say Brian Blessed has the best voice in all of history.
So good.
Gordon's alive. Leylahan Deity said, Drinker, being a Resident Evil fan, do you have any thoughts on the game which spawned the franchise, Sweet Home for the Famicom, released in 1989? I've never really played it, I'm afraid. I've seen like playthroughs and stuff, and it looks really interesting. Like a kind of low res, even lower res version of Resident Evil. But yeah, I like the visual presentation of it. Never got a chance to play it myself, I guess. Maybe they could remake it at some point. Hopefully do it justice. Mr. Luca says, please play Gracie's news clip on stream. I don't know, man. Grace Randolph has new like lolcow clips like pretty much every day at this point. I don't know which one we're supposed to play.
You got to be more specific. When you say today's clip, you'd have to be more specific.
And I think we'd all need to like remove our headphones to play Grace Randolph because that voice.
The voice of 1,000 angels.
Imagine waking up to that every morning.
The voice of 1,000 angels all having a stroke at the same time. Andrew McCarthy says,
dying.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that part. He says, can't wait to see Gary all giddy for One Piece manga.
I'm giddy. I'm semi-giddy. As giddy as I get. I'm pretty giddy. I'm excited.
Yeah. This is giddy at 54.
Yeah. Kind of mellows out over time.
Yeah. Kevin O'Neill says, I already asked you on the Resident Evil stream today, but I'd love to get the panel's thoughts. Any excitement for Godzilla -1? I'm a cynical bastard by default, but I've got a good feeling about this one. So do I, actually.
Looks interesting. Yeah. There's not much stuff that looks interesting coming down the pike here. We got Godzilla -1, Silent Night looks pretty good. And the Iron Claw and Ferrari. I want to see Ferrari. That looks pretty dope. Michael Mann movie. But yeah, no big tent poles, nothing. For the rest, wait, I'm sorry. The Marvels, Aquaman 2, the Wonka. You want to see a Wonka prequel?
Oh, everyone
yeah,
wants to see that, Gary.
I'm thrilled. Can't wait. Waylon Bicephus asks the panel, Craven Moorhead or Dixon between her legs? That's a good one. Andrew McCarthy says, just recently bought the only DVD that has the OG Star Wars theatrical cut. No CGI alterations, no changing character moments, and Han shoots first. Isn't it crazy that that's going to become like a rare item now? The original theatrical cut where they didn't fuck with it.
Well, that's probably a transfer from the Laserdisc. So, yeah. Somebody sent me 4K, like, upscaled versions of the the OG editions.
Is that any good? Look good?
Yeah. It's freaking amazing.
Nice.
Maybe I can get some for you somehow.
Wow. Sanjeev Vinsmoke says, just rewatched the Burton duo. Batman 89 was brilliant. JN is peak Joker. Jack Nicholson, sorry. 9.7, Batman Returns as iconic Christmas movie with best Catwoman besides the animated series.
Even then.
Yeah, that's the best Catwoman. She's the best Catwoman. Well, I don't know.
Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, yeah, good stuff. John Smith, this is a three-parter, says, ever seen Phantoms with Ben Affleck and Peter O'Toole? No. Sorry.
You were the bomb in Phantoms, yo. Come on. Nobody knows that reference?
Nope.
It's from a Kevin Smith. It's from, was it Jay and Silent Bob? Which Kevin Smith movie was that, chat? I'm pretty sure it was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
We'll wait for the chat to come catch up with us.
Julie Newmar is a pretty good Catwoman too, chat. I agree. That's why I had to stop. I'm like, no, Julie Newmar got me through some very early years of childhood.
Got me through some lonely
Yeah, it was Jay and
nights.
Silent Bob. Thank you, chat.
Fair play. He also says, thoughts on Hocus Pocus and Casper?
I like them both.
The Casper, the Casper movie?
Yeah, from 95.
From 95.
With Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen it. I just don't remember it at all.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you anything
There's a
about
scene
it.
where he becomes a boy, where he becomes a real boy at the end. It's a pretty good scene, actually.
Yeah. And also, did you know that women sympathize with Amy from Gone Girl? I didn't know that.
I haven't seen it.
Having not seen Gone Girl, it's tough to say.
Can't say I identify with the character I haven't seen.
Marksman of 117B says, Drinker should see Unicorn Wars, a fun animated film of unicorns and teddy bears genociding each other for religion and prophecy. It's well worth it. That sounds eerily familiar right now. RRTNZ says, Hail Drunkler and Co. Been rewatching Daredevil Season 1. Forgot how great it was. Found myself cheering for Fisk. Almost wanted to see him succeed, whereas Karen Page is almost a villain. Your thoughts?
Oh, no. Karen Page almost a villain?
That reaction.
Where do you get that?
I did like Fisk, though.
I mean, if you're on Fisk's side, then yes, she was the villain. I will say that. If you're like Team Fisk, yeah.
He just wants to build a better New York, you know?
Build a better New York.
He wants to build back better, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wants to build back. You know what? His plan was better than our president, so I'll say that.
He also says, question from Mueller. Probably best that he reads it, and he can't right now because, like, only I can see it. Mwah.
No.
So I'm gonna read it in traditional Welsh. Facet tí'n wynwyd fideo algyliad fflwgriad am Twin Town os gweleth o'r syniad.
Is that the words on the ring?
That was perfect translation.
That was perfect Walesman.
You know that super long town name the Wales has? Gary, did you ever see the Red Nose Day?
Hold on. I'm going to put it in private chat.
Did you ever see the Red Nose Day parody of Lord of the Rings that Dawn French did?
No.
You'd love it. It's retarded and funny. Like
what does that say? Wait a minute. How am I supposed to take that?
you're supposed to take it as a compliment, a wonderful, warm, and happy compliment. So,
Okay.
The like climax of the scene where she picks up the ring and the fire and the words stuck out, she starts reading it, and it's that town in Wales.
Oh, is it?
She reads all around.
I gotta watch that. I did not. Oh wow.
But yeah, I put it in private chat more. If you were able to have a go at it.
You mean I gotta stretch out I gotta get a translation software just so that they can get their answer. I'm assuming they're asking what I thought of Twin Town. It's probably the most straightforward thing to assume from it. Which
also, just for a point of reference, I've also put up here. This is the longest. This is the longest town name, and it's a real town in Wales.
Yeah,
it looks like someone just like passed out on their keyboard and had a cerebral hemorrhage or something.
But to answer them, no, I'm not fluent in Welsh, so I couldn't make a video in Welsh about reviewing Twin Town. I got loads of other films I'd review before Twin Town, but it's a fair request. They said please at the end. I feel bad now. Probably not. But,
are you still allowed to call yourself Welsh if you can't speak Welsh?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Do you guys know how to speak English? No.
Allegedly.
does Drinker know how to speak Scottish? No.
English
not that you know, Muller.
Gary, can you speak American? Don't think so.
Not very well. I failed English.
There you go. Nailed it.
Ghost of Drinker's Liver says, turning another year older tomorrow, and the extra shot for Willy's Wonderland was an excellent yearly present. Thanks for all of the great work. Thank you, man. And Willy's Wonderland is a great little Halloween movie. Nick Cage fighting animatronic possessed like robots, animals. It's great fun. He also says, if Loki was pulled from the 2012 Avengers for a spin-off series, how do they explain his presence and arc in the MCU following that film?
He's a very
branching timelines.
Those little lines that you see like appear and disappear, and everybody starts crying because those are people that are just little lines. He's supposed to be on one of those little lines.
Oh, how sad.
Poor lines.
Master of Puppets says, hello, Mauler, since you're a lover of vampire and spooky content, I recommend the anime Hellsing Ultimate. Drinker, how's the movie going? I'll let you answer your thing first.
Hellsing Ultimate, I've heard about it referenced before. Maybe someday. Plenty of the anime list of recommendations is longer than the movies one, which is already pretty long.
No shortage of anime recommendations. If only they could fuel the world, then we wouldn't have an energy crisis. If we ran on anime recommendations.
We get a lot. As for the movie, all going great. We did all of our filming, production wrapped back in August, and it's just post-production now. It's the boring stuff, the editing, the sound effects, the visual effects, all that stuff. So expecting to have that done by the end of the year. So we'll probably release the movie in January. That's the plan right now. So I'll keep you updated.
Can't wait.
I almost wish that there were problems, because then in a meta way you could do production hell on
my own movie. We did have a few headaches along the way, but we'll talk about that in the behind the scenes.
Hey, I got your comic book yesterday. I haven't read it.
Oh yeah. How was it?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
I'll read it. I got it yesterday. I've been busy. The art looks fantastic. I love the choice with that. So
it was something a bit different, like that watercolor style.
I'll let you know as soon as I read it. I'll message you basically saying this is trash. It sucks. Give up. Don't ever do it again.
That's fair enough.
That'll probably be my review. But
stick to film review.
Stick to film review.
And you're not even very good at that, Drinker.
Don't quit your day job.
It was an interesting change of pace to go from writing 500-page novels to writing like a 15 or 20-page comic book. So you have to condense a lot down to try and still tell a story. Count.
Wait, no, you could have just done the new Marvel method and just had two non-binary people sitting around a table eating and talking about their sexuality.
I tried to make that
really
work
good for a Rambo prequel, I think.
Yeah, during the Korean War, I figured the American GIs were definitely talking about issues like that. So
all the time.
Tempted,
all the time. It's a hidden history.
I'm coming to get them.
Yes.
Mr. Lucas says, Mauler, do the quiz again, but with movie characters. What quiz?
That's what we said at the end. We did a big old EFAB episode based on the 100 most referenced human beings in history, with the top choices including people like Isaac Newton, etc. And we did a down to 100. The idea was it was split into 2 teams, and they take it in turns. And the higher on the rankings they got, the more points they got, but they would knock off the list. And did a couple of other rounds. It was like Family Feud, different game show type stuff. And I said at the end, as long as people liked it, which people really did, we'll get 2 new teams, and we'll do fictional top 100 fictional characters. So of course that would include stuff like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. But when all those places are taken, you got to start guessing a little bit different, like like Popeye or something. Maybe he's on there. Who knows?
Maybe I'll invite you guys. Have you seen the Robin Williams Popeye movie?
Yes,
I know of it. I don't think I ever saw it though.
It was a weird experience back in the day.
It's a fever dream, but I actually love it. Yeah.
Was it correct me if I'm wrong, was it Shelley Duvall playing Olive Oil?
Yep.
Perfectly. Oh, fuck, yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
That
movie is a trip. But yeah.
I love when they had Popeye and fucking Family Guy. It's like the reason your face goes like this is because you've had a stroke, and it's like his arms are just like giant tumors. It's like, I can't believe you think a human being is supposed to look like this. The next one is a 3-parter from Jordan Pendragon. Says, down south we call these hotshot know-nothing producers and executives fence post turtles. For example, while driving down a country road, you come across a fence post with a turtle balanced on top. That's what we call a fence post turtle. You know that he didn't get up there on his own. He certainly doesn't belong up there. He has no idea what to do now, and he's now that he's there, and you've just got to wonder what kind of idiot put him up there in the first place. Pretty much sums them up, I suppose. Yeah. Glippy says, in Saw X, where did Jigsaw get all the blood for the fake trap? The only possible place that I can think of is the dog shelter. I don't know, but it confuses me a lot. There was a lot of blood involved there.
Could it just be a butcher's? You can buy blood from a butcher, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I walked into my local butcher and said, excuse me, sir, I'd like some blood, please.
They do it all the time.
Wait, do you not know that, Drinker? You can buy blood from a butcher.
They do it all the time in Buffy.
Get the meat and wring it out.
I was going to say, I guess I would have found that out when I was like 8 years old. Because
how do you know
Buffy.
that, though?
Yeah, you watch Buffy, Drinker. You should have seen that. They buy blood from butchers all the time.
Yes, you can buy blood. Yes, you can. I'm not going to tell you how I know.
Okay.
I mean, a butcher would be willing to sell the blood because it's just free money, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure they would. I just kind of wonder why they stockpile it in the first place. It seems like the sort of stuff.
You could ask for a special order, I guess, at least, right? Like, don't drain all your blood away.
See, now I'm starting to get League of Gentlemen vibes, where it's like you go to the butcher and ask for the special, like the other meat. It's like, I don't know. I know it's wrong, but it just tastes so good. Anyway, Samson the Mighty says, Drinker and Panel, Endymion TV has said that Miles Morales needs his own superhero name instead of piggybacking off of Peter Parker's Spider-Man. With that said, what do you guys think his name should be? How about Miles Morales?
That's his name.
Wait, are you asking for superhero name suggestions?
Yeah.
Well, his name's Miles Morales. I mean, that's what it is. So.
Oh, are they looking for more of a
No, this is an argument from old comic shop days. I mean, we're being funny, but Miles Morales is Miles Morales. He's never going to be the Spider-Man or the Amazing Spider-Man or whatever Spider-Man you want him to be. He's just a derivative Spider-Man, but he would have been much better served at given whatever his name is, whatever different name you give him, and make him a legitimate sidekick to Peter Parker over years' time. Make it like Robin, and then he can go on his own like Nightwing if they were willing to put anything into it. But the creator of the comic book just wanted to give a Spider-Man for POCs.
We can do this the old style of what comic book creators would have done, which is Google spider names and then go, okay, Orb Weaver, Huntsman,
well, I think
Kid. I think you could go with that.
I mean, I think now about like Falcon, how he's now Captain America. It's like you had a character with a unique identity and a pretty cool superhero gimmick all of his own. Now you've just folded him into someone else.
There's loads of awesome names you could have given him. You didn't have to give him Spider-Man, but I guess.
Dude, I heard the Spider-Man 2 game. I watched 3 reviews last night. It's just dog shit. Like
the big thing I was hearing, it's like
does
a
Miles
20-hour game.
do everything,
There's
and
good
Peter Parker
gameplay.
is just useless.
But as one reviewer put it, Miles is Jesus Christ in it. Peter's a complete cuck. All the power goes to Mary Jane. It's like, oh shit. I'm so glad.
I heard there was a part where you play as a deaf girl or something. And I was like, what? How do you fit that into a Spider-Man game? What's the context for that?
Oh, did you see the Mary Jane is a writer on it's a self-insert. It's been going around on Twitter.
Oh,
they show the writer and it looks just like the face of Mary Jane they put on Fairy. So it's self-insert.
That explains why she's a fucking plug.
I saw a bunch of people who are mad that apparently Miles defeats symbiote Peter. So, like, not only can he beat Peter, but he can beat the beefed up, angry Peter, too.
Miles raises somebody from the dead in it.
What?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
But hey, maybe the context absolves all these things. I've only heard out of context stuff. But what I've been also saw was a bunch of crashes for the game, which is unusual. And apparently it's like, on average, 20 to 30 hours to 100% it, which is really weird for an open world game.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you just said.
Don't worry about it. Nerd things.
Just focus on opening doors. It'll be all right. Samson also says, Drinker and Panel, are you excited for Reacher Season 2 coming in December and Invincible Season 2 coming on November 3rd? Is that so soon?
Yeah, Invincible's just around the corner. I'm kind of... They made some changes to Invincible they made some very woke changes to Invincible that do hurt the story. But
I think everyone fucking hates the girlfriend, don't they?
Yep. Reacher Season 2, hell yeah. Sign me up. Let's fucking go. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. He also says, Drinker and Panel, what is one of your favorite guilty pleasure movies? Everyone gets 15 seconds to say what it is and why. Begin.
Should we rule out The Room? Like, no one's allowed to use that one?
Yeah, that's too obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Batman and Robin is my obvious pick. I thoroughly enjoy how much Arnold Schwarzenegger is just going for it in that movie. It's hilarious. I think the film moves forward from being like self-aware into absolute cringe and then hyper cringe and then like a level of, do they know? I don't know. And it's such an absurd and hilarious movie. I don't know why it was made, but I absolutely adore watching it.
I think my most recent one would be Willy's Wonderland, just because it's got Nicolas Cage not saying a single line of dialogue throughout the entire movie and fighting evil, possessed animatronic animals.
I don't think that. Do you feel guilty about that though? I mean, it's Cage.
I feel like I should feel guilty, but I don't want to. And I just embrace the glory of it. Every other aspect of it is so shit. Like, not a single other person in the whole movie can act to save their lives. And it was clearly done on a budget of about $50, but I don't care. It's just so ridiculous and fun.
I think like guilty pleasure is supposed to be like, I like Green Onions or Wild at Heart or some like lame rom-com, which I don't. I mean, I like Clueless.
Legally Blonde.
I like Legally Blonde. Those are actually good movies. So I don't feel guilty. I guess the only one, for me would be the Snyder Cut. I fucking love it.
Damn, that's a guilty pleasure now.
Well, yeah. I mean, but
what happened, Gary?
There is no shame to my game. I don't care. I'll watch.
No,
shit.
I mean, I didn't realize you consider that one bad enough to be considered a guilty pleasure.
Love Actually, I fucking love Love Actually. I watch it like
Love
twice
Actually is
every
good
Christmas.
from what I know, though.
It's a good movie. I don't feel guilty about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Is a great movie, chat. That you should not feel guilty about that. I'm just trying to think of what I feel guilty about watching.
Porn.
I was gonna say short films, short independent films that are about 20 minutes long.
20 minutes, damn.
Dude, I don't really watch them.
The build up, isn't it?
So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Echo and Platoon, what's your guilty pleasures?
Any kind of Western film, I think, because I feel I just have to switch my brain off and it's very generic. Anything that is hyper and super generic, I feel a little bit guilty watching, but I just enjoy going into that world as well. Plus
like
Commando. I like putting that on.
Western filmmaking or Westerns?
Westerns as a whole, as a genre. Any Western film, I think. Cowboys and aliens. That's a guilty pleasure for me because it's so stupid. But it's got Harrison Ford in it.
That is the stupidest concept ever. That's Jon Favreau.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if they necessarily made it work. I did
But
like
Westerns
Battleship,
are
though.
some of the greatest films ever made. Westerns, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
Outlaw Josie Wales, fucking great movie.
I don't even know if this counts as guilty. Ready Player One is a useful film because I spend hours every day editing, and most of the time is spent looking at my computer. But if Ready Player One is on, once every half an hour, I might look over at the TV and think, I understand that reference, and then I go back to editing again. So it's kind of useful background
How
stuff.
often
it's a
is
good
your TV
screensaver.
playing Ready Player One?
Not that often, to be fair, but sometimes if I just need background crap, it'll be like Pacific Rim, Ready Player One, the Star Wars prequels. There's a bunch. Yeah, there's a bunch of like edit entertainment, and there's a huge list of that stuff.
Ready Player. Sorry. Oh yeah. Well, it's worth watching for some of the set pieces. Like, it's just everything else that ties it together is complete nonsense. Like the Israel section, that's pretty good stuff. Pretty good action scenes. Battleship someone referenced as well. Like that's got a bit of a pull to it. It's so stupid, but I like it.
Remember, Michael Bay films used to be guilty pleasures, but then we had our current era of Hollywood, and we're like, fucking, they were great, man. They're technical sound storytelling. So
I look back at Armageddon now, and I'm just like, I'll take that. I'll watch that. Next question is Taker 610. Supposedly Thor 5 is now in development. I haven't seen writers or directors attached yet, but if Marvel will reset Daredevil, maybe they're going to fix Thor. I wouldn't hold your breath if I were you.
I'm so bored of that character.
I'm not even sure that they would make a Thor 5, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
I don't know how you can
do
get something into development when a major facet of your industry is on strike. I would really be skeptical about any announcements.
I mean, they could be writing it, I suppose. If it's just at the scripting phase, it's possible. Dragon Paul Z says, can you talk about the difference between characters having personality and having a character? Can't really put to words what there is a difference. Sorry, can't really put to words, but there is a difference. So is there a difference between personality and character? I suppose it comes down to their arc, really.
Yeah, well,
someone mentioned Battleship earlier. Is Battleship the one with Rihanna in it?
Yes.
So she has personality in that film, right? She's like aggressive, loud. She has about 5 lines of dialogue, 3 of which are or huh. And that's basically it. But like, she's expressive, so she has a kind of visual personality, but she has absolutely no character because she doesn't go on a journey. There's no story behind her. There's no message underpinning. She's not conveying anything, and you could remove her entirely from the script and nothing meaningful would change.
Yes. So to go back to the point I made, it's like a personality is just like the very obvious traits that you see about a person, but the character is like the arc that they go on, the journey that they go on. Who are they at the beginning versus who are they at the end of the story, I suppose. I'll do a couple more and then finish up. Casey Boyd says, I was thinking about visiting the UK for vacation, but then I remembered that's the place that gave birth to James Corden. And, I am still sorry about that.
I ignored that while I was there, but it did.
We've apologized for that so many times. What can we do?
Well,
anymore?
then take him back.
No.
And we're not taking back Harry.
Take him
you
back.
Guys, you've got to keep Megan as well.
And you have to keep Kevin Spacey over there too.
I mean, hopefully he'll be imprisoned at some point, so then we don't have to worry about him. But yeah, James Corden, fucking Christ, that guy. Casey Boyd says, do you think the Dark Knight runtime was warranted given that Nolan films can be too long?
How long was the Dark Knight? 2.5?
Long enough to be awesome.
Well, that third act with the 2 ships, it did drag on quite a lot.
So 152 minutes. So yeah, about 2.5 hours. Which is not excessive. I mean, fuck, man, I just got out of Killers of the Flower Moon. That was 3.5 hours of cinema.
How was Brendan Fraser in that movie?
Barely in it. He gets like 3 minutes of screen time.
So did it have a happy ending, Drinker?
Well, it depends on your perspective, Gary. Not really.
No.
It doesn't even end. It just stops.
It stops, right? And it goes into like kind of a montagey feel. That's what I heard. But
it goes into a radio play that just kind of wraps up all the characters, fates, basically. And because it's based on real life, nobody has like a cinematic fate where it's like, oh, they get sent to prison for the rest of their days or whatever. It's like, he got paroled after like 5 years and then he just lived a pretty normal life for the next 20 until he evenally dies. Like nobody really gets punished.
The rest.
Kind of, yeah. Like it's all very mundane, and it just felt like a bit of a missed opportunity, that movie, because I think it's tackling a worthwhile cause. Like as a Brit, I wasn't aware of any of this stuff, the Osage murders or anything, but it's an interesting thing to bring to our awareness. It's just it doesn't do it in the best way.
As a matter of time passing, I saw an interesting image on Twitter which had Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro in This Boy's Life from 1990 when they're playing across from each other. Now, all these years later, makes you feel old.
Yep. It's just damn.
It's because you are. Just fun.
Yeah.
It's true.
One more super chat from David Kelly. He says, "Did anyone else think that Jonathan Majors' performance in episode 3 of Loki reminded them of Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder?"
I was getting those vibes for sure. That was an embarrassing scene, and I'm saving it for my video. I remember when I put up the clip of Loki and Mobius eating pie, and I said the absolute state of Marvel, and that clip on stupid Twitter got 5.5 million views because it hit Reddit, and some people got pissed about it. How you feeling now, Reddit? How you feeling now? After watching Jonathan Majors, I was embarrassed for him. I'm like, oh my God, man, there's a bunch of people telling this guy he's like really good and he can just do whatever the hell he wants, and he's not. He's not. But now they have an excuse to get rid of him.
Is in your professional opinion, is Kang the shittest villain in the entire MCU?
In this version, yes. Kang is absolutely like Kang. I would Ghost and Kang are the two shittiest villains by far.
What about what's his name, Dreykov, the one who doesn't like women?
No, because in a strange way I can identify with him. No, I'm just kidding. That's what they say. No, he's pretty dumb too, and how he dies is dumb. But no, Kang is a dog shit villain. Like, it's fine in the comics, but things that work in the comic books don't necessarily always translate well to cinema, especially when you have a lot less time to build up a story. And Kang is just a retconning nightmare in the comic books that's been retconned 1,000 times. When you kill your villain, or you defeat your villain, but essentially kill him twice, once at the hands of female Loki, the second time at the hands of fucking Ant-Man, and then you bring him back and wait till you see what happens tonight. He's been defeated twice by like lame characters. Does he feel threatening in any way? What was threatening about Thanos? He was barely in it. He was barely in anything. He was just in the background. What was threatening about him? Well, he was freaking out a lot of people out, but our imaginations were filling in the rest. Now they're just bringing out Jonathan Majors to do a riff. I thought Mahler. I thought his performance at the end of Loki season 1 was the worst. But
well,
they found a way. They can always go worse. That's the impressive thing about Marvel.
It's kind of sad that with all the swirling court cases and allegations, the actor playing the role is actually more threatening than the character.
The depths of hell are the limit.
Oof. That's so true. It's going to trial.
Yeah,
it's going to trial, and they described the events in Deadline in detail, and it doesn't sound good. I mean, I don't know if he's going to do any serious time. Sounds like he's probably going to get sued and possibly lose his job. Disney's being amazingly patient on this one. Patience they didn't show somebody like Gina Carano.
Well, I think
he's worked with The Flash. Remember, they delayed forever, decided what they were going to do, and then it just squirted out.
I think with like Kang, he's central to everything that they've got going on, though, isn't he?
Yeah, this is why you talk to like this is not the way to make movies. This is stupid. This is why the DCU is DOA. Their second movie is The Authority. Like, why in the hell would you do that? So, yeah, they're screwed. I'd say, you know what? Retcon it and just say the High Evolutionary was using Kang to get access to the multiverse so he can make all the universes perfect, and just call it a day.
If they reset in any way, fuck it, right? Like, who cares? If they're just going to reset, you can do some wacky, insane nonsense like they've been doing for the past however long now, like many years.
Just have them get
15
defeated
years now,
and find
With Aquaman 2, you're going to go into the cinema and look at an actual, legitimately crazy person on the screen, an Amber Heard, who was shown in public to be actually legitimately crazy
as they can. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, maybe that makes her the greatest actress ever because she can act like a not crazy person on screen for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
If she's got more than like 10 minutes of screen time, I would be shocked. Like they will have cut that down to the bone.
They need to make it an Expendables, but with all of the people who've broken the law as actors. Jonathan Majors, Amber Heard, Kevin Spacey, written by Joss Whedon, maybe
Ezra Miller.
They call it like the deplorables or something.
The expended.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm going to finish up there for this evening. I want to say to my glorious panel, thank you guys for joining us this evening. It's been fucking great. And thank you to chat for all your awesome input. Thank you for all the super chats. As always, if there's ones that we've missed, we will absolutely cover them on Super Chat Catch Up. But thank you for your generosity, and thank you to my mods for their usual sterling work and keeping everything ticking over. I appreciate all you guys. But that is all that we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.